For over 130 years, Peoria Unified has been proud to support families in the West Valley. Our schools and programs might look different than how they did then, but one thing remains constant. Peoria Unified staff are part of an extended family raising tens of thousands of young people, helping them day in and day out to grow and learn so that someday they can shape our future. In the spring of 2020, our world was turned upside down. Schools and businesses closed so that our families could find shelter from the storm. Classes were empty and offices were locked, but still, the people of Peoria Unified were there to help, to support, and to comfort. The smallest act became a symbol of community and hope. Thousands of our families were able to feed their children by picking up food at our campuses or even having it delivered by our buses. Laptops were provided so that students were able to connect with their teachers and continue to learn. Calls, emails, video chats, and even handwritten cards and letters let our children know that even if we couldn't be in the same room, we were still all in this together. Now, as we plan to reopen our campuses, our schools will look as different to us as those first Peoria campuses would to a modern student. Physical distancing, enhanced cleaning, and staff wearing masks are not the issues we expected to deal with when we started working in Peoria, and they can make you feel like nothing will ever be the same. But for our families and children that attend our schools, one thing will never change. They count on our staff to be there and have taught their children that in times of crisis, one should always look for the helpers. We might see the mask, but they see the helpers behind the mask. The driver that safely takes them to and from school. The maintenance person that keeps their classroom clean and safe. The cafeteria worker who feeds them when they are hungry. The nurse who comforts them and keeps them healthy. The office staff that answers their questions and keeps them informed. The school resource officer that protects them. The coach who helps them see the importance of teamwork. The librarian who reads them a story or gives them a book. The counselor that unlocks their future. The administrator who can handle any problem. And most of all, the teacher who dares them to dream and is there to catch them if they fall. In this time of worry and sorrow, our students, our children, need us more than ever. For over 130 years, the proud employees of Peoria Unified have stepped up to support the families of the West Valley. And for the upcoming school year, they are depending on us to be there more than they ever have before. These are our children. These are our classrooms. This is our moment. We are Peoria Unified.
Good for you. This is for you. It has candy and stickers and erasers.
Oh my Thank you so much.
At Zuni Hills, we really felt like it was important for our teachers and our kids to be able to see each other face to face before we embark on this virtual learning journey that's ahead of us. The leadership team at our school asked if we could do this, so we planned it for 3 full mornings. We're going to meet with every single grade level with hour-long drive-ups, and the teachers are going to be presenting the kids and the families with some tangible handouts that are some wonderful resources to help them on this virtual path and to get them started with their school year. So we're really excited to meet those social emotional needs, get to know our families, let our teachers see their students, and get some great pictures for the memory books.
Good morning. How are you? Your hair. Oh my God. I make you laugh. I like your mask. This is for you. It has some candy and stickers and erasers. Lots of cool things in there. This is for you. And when I chat with you later today, I won't have my mask on. So then you can see my face and say, oh, that's who she really is, right? Just for you. There's some goodies in there, and there's all your belongings that you're going to need. Let's see, it's hard to get lighting just right. Good to see you, Anson. Hi, I'm Mrs. Walters. You remember me, don't you? Beeson knows me. Hi, Beeson. Just so that we can connect with the students, maybe make a face-to-face contact and let them be excited about kindergarten. Add some normalcy to this kind of hectic, crazy start. Make it a little better for the kids. Carter, I missed you. There's some stuff in there.
All right, it was so nice to meet you. We will chat later. I'll take it up. All right, bye. Have a great day.
Good evening, sorry, everybody. Let's call this meeting to order at, looks like 6:01 p.m. It is great to see everybody's faces, although masked up, but it's good to see everybody and everybody in good health. So, with that said, I've asked Ms. Sehar Martinez to lead us in the pledge. And prior to going through the pledge, I would like to make sure that we all have a few individuals in mind as we pause for the moment of silence. We have lost a district partner who has been with us for years, one of our invaluable assets, as we continue to broaden our bandwidth as a district. We lost a teacher who passed, as well as one of our retirees, and from what I understand, we also have, one of our coaches / teachers who has fell ill, I believe, is in the hospital. So if we can keep all these individuals in mind, and certainly keep them on our thoughts and prayers as we go through the moment of silence, I'd appreciate that. So Ms. Sehar Martinez, if you can allow us to pause for a moment of silence, and then at your convenience, lead us through the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Sehar Martinez. All right, moving along to agenda line item number 3, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. Board members, anyone wish to make any changes to the current agenda? Ms. Sehar Martinez?
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
Okay, before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge that I know Ms. Stone, I believe, and Ms. Pingarelli will be arriving shortly, but we wanted to go ahead and get started in this evening's meeting. So that's it, going on to agenda line item number 4, recognitions. 4.1, Ms. Sehar Martinez? Or I'm sorry, Miss Airy. This totally feels new to me. I've been so used to just looking at a screen. Now I'm looking at a screen and people.
Well, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and cabinet members, and guests who are joining us through another virtual board meeting for our community, but very glad to be back with all of you face to mask, I believe it is. But I do have a couple of recognitions for us this evening. As has been the case for so many years in this district, this is the first governing board meeting of the start of a new school year. So happy New Year to all of you, which is really just the traditional welcome that you hear so many say across school districts, really all around the nation, to signify the excitement that is the start of a new school year. It is exciting, even though it is very different this year. We still had a lot of excitement. And so, if I may, I'm going to just bring you some statistics, a little bit of a rundown or highlight of our first day, and then we've captured some really great moments that we want to share with all of you as well, and you can watch along on those with us. But as you know, we really had a remarkably smooth start to the school year on all of our 42 schools, and it was really the first of its kind in our 131-year history, in that it was all virtual. August 5th, obviously, our first day of school. Leading up to that, our Human Resources Department really did work tirelessly to hire and process more than 150 new teachers across the district. In addition, we had more than 70 classified staff members that were hired during the summer. So in total, more than 200 new hires that joined our Peoria Unified family. And staffing is really one huge piece of the puzzle, but training is another really huge piece. And before school started, Peoria Unified teachers engaged in training focused on our new online platform, Florida Virtual. You'll be hearing more about that, I know, later on in our meeting. And some of our students may have been introduced to Florida Virtual starting just this week and, of course, trickling out into next week and beyond. So there's so much that goes into making that successful in this virtual format, and I would be remiss if we didn't really recognize the efforts in particular of our IMT team and Mr. Gay's directors that certainly have supported that rollout and all the technology that went into making us into this virtual environment. Live teams and Synergy gradebook trainings took place. They were delivered to all of our certified staff. Technology tips, training videos. Our IMT team really continues to produce new and I believe really cutting edge ways to reach our teachers in quick and efficient ways, knowing how busy they are and that they have so much that they are working through right now. And they do so really with a great deal of customer service. So I want to make sure that we in particular mention Mrs. Nash. And I can tell you I have been copied on many an email early in the morning or late at night where she's providing some really stellar customer service directly to a teacher or even to a parent or student that is in need. So over the course of really the last couple of weeks, our IMT department has overseen the distribution and supporting our sites in sending out 18,000 laptops across our district. We collected back about 1,500 that were loaned out over or lent out over the spring. So those could be serviced, re-imaged, sanitized, and available for student use. So there's still about 600 more that we're servicing. We're getting those ready for distribution, and as more demand or need arises, we'll have those ready to send out to our students that are in need. Our help desk is available for phone calls from employees, parents, and students if there's something that they need. And working hand in hand with IMT is our curriculum and instruction department. As you all know, and as many of our families know, these first 8 days of online learning have been focused really on setting our kids up to be strong learners in a new environment. So making sure they're prepared in kind of what is our new normal. But we have to make sure that we continue to feed our students and take care of some of those basic needs that our students are used to receiving when they are inside of our schools. Our transportation, our food and nutrition department, they have been working really in tandem to feed the community. Over the summer, I think we've shared with many of you that we had a partnership with Stern Produce, and through a USDA grant, we were distributing 2,700 boxes of dairy, 3,600 gallons of milk, 9,480 boxes of produce over the summer, and I think they're just wrapping up many of those deliveries that they're handing out as people can drive through to get them from our team over in food and nutrition. So some really remarkable examples all across the district. You're going to see in just a moment here a little printable that we made from our team to distribute to our families about the excitement of the first day of school. We were really thrilled to see more than 340 of those that were shared with us on social media. So that was kind of cool to see how our families were really getting excited. About 2,600 kindergarten kits were packaged, put together, and sent out to our littlest learners, and that was a really big effort from Dr. Bell and her team to get all of those together. We really wanted to make sure that our kindergartners had something tangible as they're kind of working through what this experience is like. It's new to everyone, but for a kindergartner who may never have had the experience of school, speaking from experience with a kindergartner at home, I can tell you having some manipulatives to use as they're participating in their lessons is most definitely helpful to them. So our transportation team partnered with Dr. Bell's team, and so they picked those up and distributed those out across our schools, and that was extremely helpful as well. I think one of the statistics I want to share with you before we roll that video so you can see some of the highlights talks about kind of our touch points that we have had with our students. Not knowing really what to expect on day one, we're really pleased to report that on the very first day of school, we had a 97% attendance rate. So we made actual connection with 97% of our families. That's really important, and the work that's going on in our schools right now is continuing to make sure we're reaching out and connecting with those students that weren't there on the first day. So that's steadily increasing, and our schools are doing personal phone calls, reaching out. Many of our principals doing well checks with our families to make sure that we can make contact with all of the students that are enrolled in our district. So if we can, I want to take just a couple of moments. If you have your laptop pulled up and you're streaming the meeting, you can see our video there, but I know we are going to display it for you on our screens as well. Some highlights from the first day. There we go. I think I'm in business. Sorry about that, Mr. Cawley. My touch, of course. So I think the final shout out I would give as we kind of talk about the excitement that was the first day of school, I'm not sure the level of excitement, but a big shout out to the parents out there, many of whom are entering this challenge really right alongside their student and our teachers and everyone that is navigating this new environment. They really are doing an incredible job. I hope that they know that even on the days that it doesn't feel like it, but couldn't be more proud of our district and what they were able to pull off for that first day. I do have one additional recognition, President Sandoval, but I'll pause in case there are any questions or comments on this item.
I will just piggyback to the comments on technology in the background of IMT. Being in a position where I educate and consult, educating your peers is definitely nerve-wracking. And I took the opportunity, and I saw Renee, Kelly, Valerie, and Amy, when they sent the link, spent the time watching those tutorials. And late at night or early in the morning, they were easy to follow and authentic and sincere. So kudos to that tech team, Mr. Gay, for that level of expertise offered to our district. And I definitely want to recognize that, because it takes some courage to teach your peers those types of things. So thank you.
Yeah, I would just echo the same. The Herculean effort everybody has made to do this, including, parents, students, and of course our teachers who just to extreme lengths. And we keep saying that we're building the plane while we're flying it, but we're also doing it virtually without our normal tools and even our hands, right? So, and our expressions. So it's definitely challenging, but I feel like our team has done just an amazing job. It does take a lot of courage. This is an entirely new format of learning for so many of us and so many of our teachers, and it's just, there's so much gratitude for what you all have done and accomplished, and I feel like our community recognizes that and, is together with us pushing through the challenges. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Sandoval. Ms. Pingerelli? Okay. Good. Yeah, no, I would,
President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, we do have one more. Each year, we also like to use this meeting as an opportunity to introduce the leaders of our employee associations with all of you. And of course, since we could not have them here, we did meet with them and get a video of them to share with you, because I know they had some words. But I do want to take just a quick moment to share with our community who may not know the leaders of those associations. So we do have 3 official employee associations, and for the 2020-21 school year, the leader for the Peoria Education Association, or PEA. Many of you may know Trina Berg. She is their president this year, teacher at Ironwood High School, as well as Frank Eaker, and he is from Sunrise Mountain High School, and he is the vice president. We also have the CTA, or the Classroom Teachers Associations, and we have 2 wonderful teachers that lead that organization as co-directors, Don Kennedy and Renee Crawford. Also co-presidents of Peoria Principals Association, we have Ray Connolly and Paul Bauer, Mrs. Connolly representing our elementary principals, and then Mr. Bauer representing our high school principals. So as I said, they could not be here with us this evening in person, but we do have video that we will share with you. I believe the first one we'll share with you is on behalf of the Peoria Education Association.
President Sandoval, members of the board, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Trina Berg. I am the president of the Peoria Education Association. I'm also a high school teacher. I teach earth space science at Ironwood High School. The rest of my executive board is Frank Eager. He is our vice president. He teaches ceramics at Sunrise Mountain High School. My treasurer is Jessica Batty. She also teaches at Sunrise Mountain High School. She teaches special education. And my secretary this year is Devin Mosler. She is a curriculum coach at the district office. I am looking forward to working with you guys again this year to continue making this district the best possible place it can be to work, to get through these very trying times this year, and continue to build the relationships that we've built up so far. Thank you very much for your time.
And the next one that we have, I believe, is from our principals, or the PPA.
My name is Ray Connolly, and I'm the principal at Sunset Heights Elementary School, and it is a pleasure to help with the Peoria Principals Association once again. I am the co-president along with Mr. Paul Bauer at Peoria High School. Our vice president is Mr. Joe Corbett at Marshall Ranch. Mrs. Jen Silva is our secretary at Sundance Elementary School, and our treasurer is Mrs. Brenda Lopresto at Peoria Elementary School. We have several goals for the school year, and all in support of our governing board and our district administration to help our school district. One of the areas of focus this year is improved communication. As administrators, we look forward to collaborating with you, our school board members, to strengthen our efforts on behalf of our schools, our students, and our teachers. Thank you in advance for your partnership.
Good evening, Dr. Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, members of the Peoria Unified School District Governing Board. My name is Paul Bauer. I'm privileged to serve as the principal of the Peoria High School. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your service to our community during this crazy time. Who would have ever thought we would be in a situation like this? So we appreciate your service and your dedication to the kids, families, teachers, and staff of the Peoria Unified School District. A little bit of history. Peoria Principals Association was founded about 20 years ago by kind of Hall of Famers, principals like Jane Cody, Bob Johnson, and others, because it felt that the principals had a unique perspective into public education. What was true 20 years ago is certainly true today. So we look forward, as Ray mentioned earlier, to working together with you on a variety of different subjects to make sure that the awesome potential of our students and their families are realized as we move forward into the 21st century. Thank you, and once again, thank you for your service.
And then President Sandoval, CTA would like for me to read this letter on their behalf. It says, "Good evening, President Sandoval, governing board members, and Dr. Reynolds. The Peoria Classroom Teachers Association was started in 1969 as an alternative to joining a union. Here's just a little background about our organization. In January of 1969, our present organization started as the Peoria Teachers Association. In September 1970, the name was changed to the Peoria Classroom Teachers Association. CTA started its cooperative relationship with PUSD in its early years with the Salary Committee and the Insurance Committee. Before CTA was formed, the Salary Committee consisted of members who were appointed by the district administration. CTA provides memberships to teachers, classified staff, retired employees, and student teachers. We are proud to represent these employee groups who work with students, parents, and staff. Our state organization, Arizona Professional Educators, offers support and opportunities for grants, scholarships, and reduced legal fees. We also provide up to $2 million of liability insurance for each of our members. We work with educators as well as listen to and support our members in a non-adversarial way to solve education problems. We support educators' rights to support their own political candidates and decide on issues. CTA has advised teachers who have had many different problems. In these situations, CTA worked with district administration to make sure teachers and students were protected, as well as making sure district policies were followed. CTA has worked with the governing board and the district administration to improve the environment that teachers work in. Thank you for recognizing our organization and for supporting us. We hope to continue our positive working relationship with the administration as well as PEA. Thank you, Renee Crawford and Don Kennedy, co-directors of Peoria Classroom Teachers Association.
Thank you for that, and thank you to all those individuals for, going above and beyond, outside the classroom and their sites to be involved in these associations to represent the district in its entirety.
That concludes my recognitions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Airy. Moving along to 4.2, board comments. Ms. Stone? Great to see you. Ms. A.R. Martinez?
Thank you, and you as well, Ms. Stones. Glad to see you and well. Everybody, thank you for the opportunity to work with you during these always challenging times and wonderful times to celebrate. But I do want to take some time to celebrate. There are 3 items. First, I hear our organizations that presented our principals as well as our teacher organizations, and I welcome with teams being convenient in virtual meetings. Please, let's continue to build on those relationships with the board. Invite us all as we have access to teams as well. Second, I want to thank the city of Peoria. They have worked with getting broadband in partnership of our students getting access to Wi-Fi. That was one of our concerns when we first started, is how do we ensure, it's great that we have laptops, but if we don't have Wi-Fi, the resource is useless. So thank you to the city of Peoria really partnering on that. I look forward to seeing what we can do with the city of Glendale and other organizations to do that, which includes our Peoria Chamber of Commerce that also did that. And then I need to take a moment to thank our staff on the front lines. This is new ways of working, not our new norm. For me, I look forward to come back in person and classrooms, and that there will be a time, but for now it's new ways of working, and our staff's classrooms virtually, I've seen on Twitter, have turned it into a science classroom or books in their own Cubby Center. I see you, I hear you, and when I'm up here, I thank you. Our parents, they have sent us emails galore, and we are doing our best to answer them. The time that you have taken to email us, and it is important to me to pause and thank you, and we read them, and we may have not responded to all of them as we're going through them, but your email is being read, and I guarantee that. And this is a challenging environment. I have 2 children of my own, and just this morning, my son did not get up on time for class. And so the reason why I know that is because Mr. Abbott in 6th grade gave me a call and said, will your son be joining us? It is a partnership. It is accountability for our children. And when I got the call from this teacher, Mr. Abbott, I'm so grateful for that. And then I have a high schooler, and it's important that I honor the CTE programs, because you would think that in a virtual environment that hands-on CTE cannot exist, but it does. And Mr. Ruiz in the automotive program, I asked my son, how is that going? He goes, oh, I can't challenge Mr. Ruiz because he knows way more than I do. And that's literally in less than 5 days that he is excited to learn. And there will be a time that they're in person, but our children are excited to go with these challenges that we're learning. It's amazing to see that in March, when the global economy transitioned to work from home in a virtual environment, I am watching our children do the same thing, which tells me we are doing the right thing because they're being prepared for what the virtual global economy looks like. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sam Martinez. Ms. Arnerill?
Whole process, mask and everything. Yeah, I would completely echo what Ms. Seja Martinez said. the feedback is really important from parents and teachers and staff and everybody right now, because we're all in this brand new situation. So, you know, everything helps. Like, it just, and the specific explanations are so helpful too. Like, I mean, it's not complaints, it's explanations of what's happening and how can we overcome some of these hurdles, which are hurdles just because of the situation that we're in. So please continue with the feedback. It's super important and it's super helpful. I also wanted to thank and reach out to our teachers that are kind of reaching out to our students in a different way. So I've heard from several schools that there's Stuco things happening, there's, you know, FLA things happening. There's a lot of things happening that are the pieces of school, I think, that our kids tune into school for. And it's a relief, and it's exciting to me that the kids are able to continue with those things that I think really build on their educational experience. So grateful to folks that are making that happen still. And then the last thing I just wanted to call out is I was able to attend the Met Advisory Committee yesterday via Zoom, or Teams, sorry. And it was fabulous. I mean, just, you know, as PUSD often does, they're just continuing on with innovation. I know they had probably, I don't know, up to like 20 members of their advisory committee, folks that are professionals in different industries in the committee, there to share what they're doing, and the Met was kind of laying out their goals and showing how they're doing what they're doing virtually, which was amazing. They have moved kind of their mentorship program or their internship program into a virtual format, so they're attracting and trying to recruit virtual mentors, which is awesome because in a way this whole virtual space gives people more of an opportunity to do that because they don't necessarily have to have the same amount of time commitment, et cetera. So they are reaching out and asking for industry mentors. So if you're interested in that, contact the Met. And then we had one of their students rep come on and just explain how things are going as far as classes, and she was so excited and so engaged in the work that she's doing already. I'm super excited to be serving as a mentor for students in this, you know, the freshman class. So I really want to congratulate the Met for moving forward in this, continuing to partner with groups like the Center for Advanced Professional Studies that came on and actually provided a little presentation, but just moving forward, and you know, that's how we do it. So thank you to everybody, and especially thanks to the Met for pushing ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, one thing I realized with the mask on, that if you're older, they can actually see when you smile because you squint. Right? So I'm hoping that people see when I smile. So just a little humor. And you know, and communication is prime importance, and I would tell people, everybody, to keep sending emails to the governing board, particularly the parents. I don't think we've had enough, and I would like to hear more parents. So, thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Pingarelli, and Ms. Stone. Ms. Pingarelli, it's a pleasure to see both of you. I know it's been a while, but it's always good to see you too. That said, you know, my fellow board members have certainly expressed a lot of their gratitude, you know, for what is taking place throughout our district at all levels, through all verticals, throughout PUSD. You know, for me, I've always talked about leadership, and you know, one of the most important really characteristics of quality leadership is the ability to listen. And I believe that each and every one of you are doing that at all levels. I think our teachers and staff, you know, in the front lines, listening to their students and the parents, and each one of you in this room, you know, listening to all those out in the field, you know, around, or listening to, you know, their grief, so to speak, and even their angst and some of their opportunities. I believe it was Ms. Underhill spoke about, you know, having certainly courageous conversations, but productive and solution-oriented conversations. And we stay there. You know, we'll get through this together in a way that you know, our students, teachers, and staff and their families deserve, without question. So, you know, I said a lot of what I wanted to say earlier, but you know, I do want to acknowledge just Again, just how proud I am of each and every one of you, our teachers, our staff, our families, our students, and certainly our board members. You know, each and every one of you continue to be dedicated to driving and really guiding the district through your lens, and certainly that's why we are here, to add that additional lens to our thought process, be good thought partners, so thank you for that. That said, Superintendent Comments.
Well, thank you, President Sandoval, and welcome to our entire governing board, our cabinet, and our support staff who's here with us this evening supporting this in-person meeting for the first time in quite some time. I wanted to say how much we appreciate everyone's patience as we continue to approach the reopening of our school district facilities with a phased concept, and tonight's meeting is part of that. So it is absolutely wonderful to see your smiling eyes and faces. Being here tonight is a reminder to us all how important it is that we do get this right. We must continue to act responsibly. We must continue to be diligent with our safety protocols. We must continue to keep the health and well-being of ourselves as well as each other at the forefront of our organizational and our personal decision-making. We must do this so we can get our community COVID cases and rates to a level where we can see the smiling eyes and faces of our students coming back through the doors and into school classrooms where we know that learning is at its most effective. But for now, as we've talked about, our learning is virtual, which began last Wednesday, and our teachers, staff, administrators did just an extraordinary job getting our students connected to their teachers. Our teachers continue to work hard, assessing where our students are after a 5-month break. Our teachers are using the first few days, as we mentioned earlier, to develop those great relationships, build technology skills, and create learning plans to address the gaps that were created with the break that was caused by COVID-19. Our community should be proud of the work that this entire team has done. I know I am. I couldn't be more proud, and I could not have asked for a better opening. So we should take a moment to celebrate. We should take a moment to say thank you. It was the hardest thing and continues to be the hardest thing that most of us have done in our educational careers. But we really do only have a moment. We need to get back to work because we have a lot of work to do. We have families who continue to struggle to connect. We have families and staff members trying to organize their lives around this new virtual learning and the unique supports that it requires. And this is not easy. We have many families who need us to continue to work hard to find solutions. But given what we're up against, this Peoria Unified School District community, they came together, we did what was right, and we got it done. And again, I am just incredibly proud. So I want to say thank you to everyone for your hard work, again, your patience and your kindness as we continue to plan for the unknown. We will do what's right, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that we have a safe learning environment for everyone. And I have 2 groups that I would like to mention this evening. As Miss Airy mentioned a little earlier, starting off the school year in an online format was not an easy feat. I wish we could adequately explain how difficult a job that was. So I wanted to recognize not only Mr. Gay, but his entire team, Jill Thomas. I have no words for the work that she did. But Mike Tregaboff, Marla Hobbs, Andrew Mendeville, the cabinet, our administrators, everyone who was involved in that. It was extraordinary, and we still have a few bumps to iron out. But where we are now, I always had confidence that this would get done, but some of them were a little scared. No. So we're really proud of the work that was accomplished. And we had another moment that I think it exemplifies the opening of our schools in this new way. So on last Wednesday, August 5th, as all students pulled up their devices and logged into their classes for the very first time, Mr. Jeff Wooten, principal at Raymond S. Kellis High School, experienced the unexpected. A student showed up in person for school and on campus with his backpack on, his smiling eyes. He was ready to go for the first day of school. And without missing a beat, and it says, while Mr. Wooten may have not known how this family, he didn't miss a beat. He grabbed this student. He said, "Welcome to Kellis. I'm so glad you're here. Come on in." And he brought the young man, the student inside. He got him set, got him a computer, got him ready to go. He took that moment, didn't let it pass. That student is going to be a friend of his for life, because he made that could have been a very awkward moment, and he made it special. So thank you, Mr. Wooten, for opening your arms, your heart, and doing what we expect all of our administrators and our teachers to do, and just show that level of caring for the children of our district. So, Mr. Sandoval, that concludes my comments.
Thank you for that, Dr. Reynolds. And you mentioned Mr. Wooten, and yes, our site leadership, just invaluable to the success of our district as well. So thank you for that. That said, moving along to public comment. This is the time where we have individuals able to speak, any concerns, feedback, et cetera, on items that are not included on the agenda. Ms. Contra, I believe we do have one public comment. Is that correct?
Mrs. Underhill, President Sandoval, thank you. You're right. This is a process with the math. I do have one public comment not tied to an agenda item. That public comment is from Mandy Cruz.
Before you get started, I just want to just reiterate, our policy around public comment, that it does come with a time limit of 3 minutes. So I believe we'll have our timer up as you speak.
And that should be up, yes. Good evening. My name is Mandy Cruz, and I have been part of the PUSD community for a very long time. I attended both grade school and high school at PUSD schools, as well as both of my children. Being a part of the community, we know very well how things work and are done within the district. It saddens me beyond measure for the reason I am here today, to speak on the injustice that Melissa Bright has dealt with this past year. I have known Melissa since we were both in 5th grade at Copperwood Elementary, where her mother was also teaching art at the time. We were reunited again freshman year when we both started our high school years at Ironwood High School. We remained great friends since, and our families and children are friends as well. I have seen Melissa accomplish so much in her life. I have watched her always push herself to be the very best at everything she sets out to do, and she always does it with a huge smile on her face and so much love in her heart to share with anyone and everyone she crosses paths with. Everyone knows Melissa knows teaching is her passion and how much she has always loved it. The bonds she has made along the way with her fellow colleagues, students, and their families speak for itself. She's not just one of the good ones, she's one of the great ones, and she leaves a lasting impression on all of them. There are so many things that she has gone through recently that should have never happened. Discrimination, defamation of character, etc. The biggest one that is hard to swallow for me is how she was treated when her daughter fell ill, was in the hospital, and undergoing blood transfusions. It is shocking how you can do that to someone so respected in her field who has dedicated her blood, sweat, and tears to your school for the last 5 years. I have personally witnessed the mental stress and anguish that this has caused her and have visibly seen the physical toll that it's taken on someone who is always so happy and positive all the time. It is unfair and disheartening what has been done to her. Pulling someone from the school that they absolutely love when nothing wrong was done on her part besides being a wonderful teacher and mentor, whose students have always been Melissa's #1 priority, and leaving the person in charge is an outrage to our community. I really hope that you will look further into how much wrong has been done here and hold the person or persons accountable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Ms. Contra, and Dr. Reynolds and team, as always. If we can make sure that we respond to this individual with any answers that are appropriate based on our comments. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Before we get to that, I know we have other public comment that is tied to an agenda item. We will read those before we get to that particular line item, which is the COVID-19 updates. Consent agenda. Any board members have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to pull? Ms. Doan?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Aaron Martinez.
President Sandoval, 6.8, please.
Okay, 6.8, the IJ between Peoria Unified School District and City of Peoria. I'll second that. Ms. Underhill?
Yes, I'd like to pull 6.4, please.
6.4. Donations report. I'll second that as well. I don't know if you notice my glasses are like totally fogging up. I can't. Ms. Pingarelli. You're good? Okay, I'm good as well. Thank you. So I do need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6.4 and 6.8.
President Sandoval, I move to approve the consent agenda item excluding 6.4 and 6.8.
Second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Sayar Martinez to approve the consent agenda minus those two line items, 6.4, 6.8, and a second by Ms. Doan. Do you want to run us through a voice vote, Ms. Contra, or?
Yes, sir. Give me just a moment
Sure.
if you don't mind. Thank you.
Take your time.
Could you please repeat the motion and the second?
Sure. The motion was by Ms. Sayar Martinez, and the second voiced by Ms. Doan.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Online voting is open, or if you would like me to voice vote, I will do that.
Everybody have their online voting up front? Ms. Doan, you okay? Okay. Board members, please cast your votes.
Motion passes. Consent agenda is approved without 6.4 and 6.8.
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Martinez, are you okay if we go in order of?
Yeah, definitely. I'll follow your lead.
Numerically? Is it okay? Okay. So we'll start off with what was 6.4, and that is, sorry, I didn't refresh my screen. So the donations report. Ms. Underhill.
Yeah, it just has come to our attention that there is a very substantial gift on the donations report this evening, and I just wondered if Ms. Myers or staff would want to talk about that a little bit. Thank you.
Yes. Well, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds. We do have a very generous donation this evening from a community member, Nina Koenig, and through her trust, which is being administered through Edward Jones, she is donating to the district 25% of her trust estate, which is estimated to be $265,000. And the donation is to be used for music programs, orchestra instruments, music appreciation, music training, and fees for teachers and instructors to give after-school lessons, as well as to purchase musical instruments. So we're very appreciative of Ms. Koenig's donation through her estate for her consideration of supporting music education in the Peoria Unified School District. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And as far as our protocol as a district, and any donation that comes in, regardless of the dollar amount, certainly one of this size, do we send out thank you notes to all donors? Just
President Sandoval, members of the board, we do send letters acknowledging donations that we do receive. In this case, it is a trust distribution through Edward Jones, and we are working with our contact at Edwards Jones, but we will definitely share our appreciation and acknowledgement through Edward Jones to Ms. Koenig's family.
perfect, thank you. Board members, any comment? Ms. Stone? On this particular item?
Woohoo!
Okay. Agreed. Ms. Sam Martinez.
No, but to the family, thank you, and in memory that our children will be able to enjoy those donations. In addition to the rest of them, Mr. Sandoval, you make up a good point. Going forward, if there's something, then when we send out the letter, since the board officially accepts the donation, if the board can have a signature, or the governing board president or a representative of the governing board going forward, that'd be a sign of gratitude to those who contribute, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I just want to echo my thanks to that family, knowing and recognizing that research shows how important music and the arts can be for our students to improve their cognitive performance, but also just to keep them engaged in school. And I know that it means so much to so many of our students. So it's just a wonderful gift, and I appreciate you bringing that forward to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pingerelli?
No, I just want to also say thank you, and music must have been a really big, important part of this person's life, so thank you.
Yeah, agreed. No, thank you to the family. And, as we take a look at education, and it's truly an investment, but this gift is invaluable to the success of our students, especially as it relates to its really kind of dedication to those programs. So thank you again to the family. So I do need a motion to approve. Is there a new number for 6.4, Kim, or do I need to refresh my screen? 7 point.
It is 7.1.
7.1? Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
So I need a motion to approve 7.1, donations report.
I move that we approve 7.1, the donations report.
I'll second that. So we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to 7.2, the IGA between the district and the city of Peoria. Ms. Sarah Martinez.
Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciate the documentation added recently. I'm just seeking to understand, I did get a call from a community member that how did we select City of Peoria as a partnership? They're concerned, they were Glendale, how come that's not offered in the Glendale partnership? So just general how to understand the partnership selected, so thank you.
There we go. President Sandoval, Mrs. Seha Martinez, thank you for that question regarding how we selected the City of Peoria for this partnership. For those maybe who haven't read the IGA or not familiar, of course, the services provided are as a result of the executive order that we are to provide on-site support services for students. In order to do that and make sure our students have a safe place to come, plug in, connect, and complete their online coursework, we knew we were going to need staff that were familiar with working with students and comfortable and background checked to be able to be in that particular role. As it stands currently during the school year, we already have a partnership in place with the City of Peoria that provides those before and after school services at all of the schools within the City of Peoria. In the City of Glendale, we do not have an outside partner that provides those services. We provide those services ourselves through our Kid Zone program. So when we looked to enter into this partnership, we knew we already had that foundation of service in place in Glendale, and we did not need to seek a Glendale partner. So we continued with those services in Glendale, and then we sought out the services with the City of Peoria because they are already providing those services during a normal school year.
Two follow-ups. The first one would be, you mentioned qualifications. I know that the governor's order is to address our most vulnerable students, and my experience with those students may require like CPR, if they have medical conditions, those qualifications, we have a process. What are the reassurances that the City of Peoria has those same qualifications in place?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Ceja Martinez, the important thing to note about the staff members from the City of Peoria who would be facilitating the process, the majority of those run programs that are licensed programs, and so because they're licensed through the Arizona Department of Health Services, they have to have all of those different components in place, such as CPR training and things. Where we are not utilizing City of Peoria employees, we have our own staff that are doing that, and of course they have all of the different certifications that Dr. Davidson could speak to, such as the background check and those things. As far as the health perspective, we do have our nurses on site at each of those locations as well. So we made sure that we had the nurses available and on site to staff those in case there is some type of a nursing concern. For those more medically fragile students, we also have supports in place that I know Mr. Duguid will speak to when we get to that portion of the presentation.
Thank you. And one last question is the funding. Since it is an executive order, where is the money coming from to pay for it?
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, we have within the IGA two sets of responsibilities. The City of Peoria will be providing the staff and the payment of the staff salaries and benefits that's defined in the IGA, and then Peoria Unified School District will be funding our own employees that we already have as staff members that we're already budgeting for. So it's actually an in-kind donation of those staffing services from the city for the additional support. The district will be paying for all materials and supplies, but the staff portion of the donation is funded by the city.
Thank you. Is this something we could consider part of the CARES Act or grants? I know we've talked about it in the past.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Ceja Martinez. President Sandoval, we are tracking all COVID-related expenses district-wide, and expenses related to the requirement for the on-site support do indeed get tracked as COVID-related.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Questions, comments, board members? Ms. Dell? Okay. Ms. Underhill?
I do have some questions about the on-site learning, but I'm going to hold off until the presentation. Thank you.
Ms. Pangrelli? You good? Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Myers, for your answering Ms. Ceja Martinez's questions. In fact, Ms. Ceja Martinez brought it up earlier, just around the partnership that we have with the City of Peoria and how invaluable that is. So we certainly appreciate their continued partnership, especially as we go through this this pandemic. So that said, I do need a motion to approve 7.2, the IGA between City of Peoria and the Peoria Unified School District.
President Sandoval, I move to approve 7.2 IGA between Peoria Unified School District and the City of Peoria on-site support services.
I'll second that. So, Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Sayre Martinez, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. And it passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to Section 8, discussion items, 8.1, COVID-19 update. But before we get into that, Ms. Contra, I believe we have some public comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Sandoval. We do have the remainder of the public comment this evening is tied to this line item. So the first one will be from Annie Converse. I just wanted to say thank you to the principal, Mr. Schoolcraft, the 7th grade teachers at Apache, especially Mrs. Koenig, and all the Apache support staff. Last week was excellent. The teachers were very organized, and I appreciate having a schedule for the online activities. Like most of her classmates, last year was a challenge with having to suddenly go virtual, but also with having changes in teachers and long-term subs last year. Based on what I saw last week and the first half of today, I am cautiously optimistic for the upcoming year despite the challenges learning during this pandemic. I'm looking forward to my child gaining access to Florida Virtual so we can see what learning looks like through that platform. Each day last week, my child ended the day excited to talk about the day, the peer interactions, who was in her class, who she worked with during group exercises, who she was happy to see, who said something that annoyed her, the teacher interactions, and the things that they did throughout the day. It truly appeared like the start of any other school year. I could see the success of the additional social, emotional support offered by the teachers for my child and really for all of the children. My child's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Koenig, really seemed to take seriously orienting the children to Microsoft Teams, as well as to support them through learning how to problem solve their personal technology issues with their devices. And really, it's all the 7th grade teachers as well. I'm still learning their names and subjects, so I'm not sure of all their names yet. I can tell that the teachers are doing their best and really trying to support the kids. With all that being said, I wanted you to know that I am confident that the teachers at Apache will be able to support my child in her educational goals for as long as we need to be virtual. I want to express my desire to all the district decision makers that virtual learning continue until at least all the state benchmarks for returning in person are met. I see no reason to rush back to class and jeopardize the children or the teacher's safety given the high quality of virtual learning thus far. The disruption of resuming school too soon will definitely be more damaging than continuing the high quality virtual learning that I have seen after the first week. Thank you, Mrs. Koenig, and all the 7th grade teachers at Apache staff for giving us hope in a dark time, as well as a great experience so far.
Ms. Contra, before you proceed, and if we need a pause between each comment, I just want to make sure that we have the timer up.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next comment is Valerie Bunce-Klein. I am the parent of a PUSD student and a new PUSD employee. I am extremely disappointed with the options for on-site support for students needing a place to go during the day beginning on August 17th. 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. hours are not even conducive to my work schedule as a PUSD employee working less than 40 hours per week. I would be late for work and have to leave early every day if I were to bring my son to one of the locations. I do not understand why the AM/PM locations differ almost completely from the 8 to 3 locations. If a parent needs an AM/PM care, they need care during the school day as well. It makes no sense for it to be at any locations other than the regular 8 to 3 locations. In the original survey about on-site support, it was never mentioned that only certain schools would be participating. Not one of the schools is one of the 3 I will be covering as a behavior tech, so I cannot even bring my child with me to have on-site support so I can work. I have been very happy with PUSD until I received the email today about the on-site support. There really is no support as far as I'm concerned because none of the hours or locations provided work, and I think a lot of other parents will feel the same as I do. I understand that the plan is already in place since it was communicated to families, but I just don't feel the survey that parents took the time to complete was even taken into consideration when the plan was made. I hope PUSD will do a better job the next time they ask for parental input in regards to their needs. Thank you for your time. The next public comment is from Christy Gordon. Board members and Dr. Reynolds, I write this public comment to ask you to continue to keep our students and staff safe. We have learned that children are susceptible to coronavirus, and while they may appear asymptomatic, the virus has long-term effects on their respiratory as well as their circulatory systems. Arizona's rate of pediatric COVID infections is the highest in the country, according to the Arizona Republic on August 12th. Children under 10 years of age also tend to have extremely high viral loads, which will affect those around them, such as the other students and staff. We have also learned that the virus has a farther spread through the air than previously thought. A study has shown that the virus was able to travel 17 feet in a room that had 6 air changes per hour and was fitted with efficient filters, ultraviolet irradiation, and other safety measures to inactivate the virus before the air was reintroduced into the room. For our special education programs as well as our on-site supported learning, I implore you to mandate that these areas are cleaned daily, especially when it comes to our programs that support students with special needs. Some of these students will have sensory issues when they put items in their mouth and are constantly touching the things around them, and a myriad of other issues. They need more than just having the trash dumped and the door handles wiped daily, not twice weekly, as has been indicated that they will be cleaned. They need the tables and chairs that the students and staff will be sitting on and touching wiped down daily. The floor also needs to be swept and mopped more than twice a week. The rooms that are being used for students with special needs, such as our RISE program, need diligent daily cleaning. Giving a teacher a bottle to spray down these items is not acceptable. Teachers are already fighting for every minute with their students and should not be expected to clean their tables, chairs, and door handles on top of their already overwhelming workload. As I watch the districts around the valley make decisions to open, I fear that this will result in cases of COVID for both students and staff. I believe that the schools that have opened will have to shut again as cases break out on campuses. I don't believe that the districts can safely open schools when the infection rate is still so high. Even though Mesa apparently has a warehouse full of PPE, do they have the required staff to clean their facilities daily in a way that is needed to mitigate the virus? I am pretty sure that we do not have those same resources. I urge you to follow the recommendations of the Arizona Department of Health and our new board of experts as they determine when it is safe for staff and students to return. If we return too early, we will be forced to close our doors and institute virtual learning again as cases rise in our district. Thank you for your continued support of our staff and students. The next public comment is from Trina Berg. President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and cabinet, I am speaking tonight as president of the Peoria Education Association. And first, I want to thank you for putting together a team of medical experts to help guide PUSD in creating and accepting health metrics we will use for reopening schools to full in-person learning. PEA asks that you please consider using metrics that are closely aligned to those released by the Arizona Department of Health Services and looking more specifically at meeting those in our district's geographic area along with the county as a whole. We ask that the plan be clear as to whether we would return to first a hybrid, then full in-person, or if the plan would continue to virtually until full in-person criteria has been met. Part of the plan should include protocol for informing staff, students, and the community of exposure to COVID, and clear guidelines for cleaning and sanitizing of the campus and information regarding the air circulation and filtration in our schools. The educators in PUSD miss our students and being in the classroom with them every day and can't wait to have them back with us, but want to do so safely as safely as we can so that we don't have to close and go virtual again soon after. Thank you for your time again this evening. The next public comment is from Danielle Arcady. Good evening, Governing Board. I vehemently urge you to consider a hybrid option for when our kids return to school. I firmly believe that doing half of the kids on Monday and Tuesday in school, Wednesday closed for cleaning, then the other half of kids attend in school on Thursday and Friday. Thank you for your time. The next public comment is from Selena Villanueva. Hello, I'd like to express my continued concern with the virtual learning. It is simply not working. My 7th grader has had connectivity issues daily where Microsoft Teams kicks her out often, unable to log in, audio inaudible, or teacher freezes so instruction is not possible. In the chat feature, it is visibly clear that she is not the only one. Students are asking questions in the chat feature or using the raise your hand icon, but not being acknowledged for 10 to 20 minutes or not at all because the teacher is trying to instruct. We have yet to use Florida Virtual like the school district said would be used, so I am not sure about the program. I just got an email yesterday from the school saying that next week starts specials, yet no indication what specials are assigned to my daughter based on her selection. Are we to assume she got her first choice? Also submitted a meal application in July and have not received a response to that. Are we to assume she qualifies? Poor communications, to say the least. Parents shouldn't have to assume. It's quite disheartening that Peoria Unified School District is lowering their standards and simply failing students and parents at the moment. Let the teachers and students who want to return to class be given the option to do so and not allow you to make the decision for all of us. If teachers are to be considered essential like doctors and nurses, there is no choice but to go to work like doctors and nurses. Please open our schools for our children's sake, mental health and success, at least for the ones, students and teachers, who wish to return. I have yet to see a survey asking how the first week of school went for parents and teachers. Maybe their thought has changed on returning now that they see virtual is not realistic, possible, or in the child's best interest. Thank you for listening. The last public comment is from Devin Motley. Thank you for your time, and I understand the difficulty of the current situation. Please consider giving our parents an option to allow their kids to be back in the classroom. I have 2 boys that have an IEP, and it is hard to watch them really struggle with the distance learning. Everyone is doing the best that they can, but my boys are not making progress due to the current situation. If there are teachers willing to be in the classroom, I would ask for the option to send my boys to school so they can continue to learn and grow. Thank you for your time and your consideration. And that is the end of public comment for this evening.
Thank you for that, Ms. Contra. Dr. Reynolds, there again, I mean, there's certainly some thoughts on, what some of our stakeholders are feeling and experiencing out there in the field, and I'm not sure if those are common or some new ones that have surfaced. But please, if you can have your team members respond to them accordingly, based on each of their experiences. Thank you. Okay. That said, moving along to the COVID-19 updates. Mr. Duguid, Dr. Reynolds, are you going to kick us off there, or are we going to? Okay. All right.
Passing it right along.
Perfect.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, and Dr. Reynolds. It is a pleasure, as we've said, to speak together in person with you this evening and deliver our COVID-19 update to you. This update will look a little bit different than the previous updates, as I will touch on each of our departments throughout the presentation. I'll be walking you through what we have done in the past few weeks, and then I will pass the baton back to Dr. Reynolds, who will be discussing what the future will look like going forward. As we've gone through the past 5 months, we have needed to rely heavily on our guiding principles of the safety and well-being of our students, while being fiscally responsible, paying close attention, and collaborating with a number of federal, state, and county, city agencies, all while collecting stakeholder feedback. As you are all certainly aware, virtual instruction began just over a week ago. As I visited schools this past week, as we have discussed this evening, I have seen incredible work occurring. I would like to echo earlier comments made this evening and thank our incredible teachers, classified staff, and site administrators for having the courage to take this challenge head on. Curriculum and instruction also have been very busy delivering professional development to our staff on a multitude of platforms, Florida Virtual and Microsoft Teams to name 2. Our sites and IMT have worked together to troubleshoot and support our students who may have had issues connecting. We understand that students and staff may still need social and emotional help while working virtually. Therefore, we have continued the support line availability through the summer and into the school year. I would like to thank Dr. Marshall Walters and Kathleen Leonard for their diligent efforts these past 5 months in answering all calls and then following up on each situation. Moving on to our operations department, Our facilities team has continued to fulfill work orders, finish projects, and maintain our campuses throughout the summer. Additionally, they have delivered disinfectant, floor markings, and hand sanitizers to all of our sites. As they did in the spring, food service and transportation have partnered together for our students. Each day, they are delivering food to our children at bus stops across our district. Currently, we have 79 bus and van routes they are completing each day. Moving on to our amazing IMT department, as a little bit we've discussed already this evening. While Mike Tregaboff and his team have worked tirelessly to prepare and re-image laptops and transport them throughout the district, the schools have done an amazing job organizing the scheduling and pickup of devices. We initially issued 850 hotspots, and that distribution has not yet been consumed by parents. We expect demand to increase, and we expect our inventory of hotspots to be sufficient to address that demand. Do we need to wait on the slide? Okay, sorry. Uploading and synchronizing student and teacher data in class rosters in Florida virtual schools has been incredibly challenging. While there are still adjustments and corrections being made, Jill Thomas and her team have done a phenomenal job completing this work in time for teacher and student use. The Tech It Out weekly tips and resources containing online recordings of training courses and tips for our students, parents, and our teachers have been enormously helpful to our teachers in preparing for online instruction. Our help desk and support team have fielded hundreds of phone calls and emails as our new journey into virtual learning has begun. Moving on to curriculum and instruction, with the release of the benchmarks from the state last week and through our work with our medical advisory team, we have shifted our process to looking at a phased approach. Given where those benchmarks are, will either guide us to remain in the phase we are in or move into the next phase. Dr. Reynolds will be sharing more on the benchmarks at the end of this presentation. In the governor's latest executive order, school districts are required to offer free on-site support services for students who need a place to go during the day. In response to that order, a survey was sent to our community. Based on the survey results, 3 schools were selected in the city of Glendale and 7 sites were selected in the city of Peoria, as well as all of our high schools. Registration opened on August 10th, and at the close of registration last night, we are excited to welcome 432 students to our campuses on Monday. Additionally, during the press conference where this latest executive order was introduced, Superintendent of Public Schools Hoffman encouraged forming partnerships to help accomplish this goal. We would like to thank the City of Peoria, as we have already this evening, but for continuing to come alongside of us to make this a reality for our students. They have been absolutely wonderful to work with. Also included in the governor's executive order was direction to prioritize our 4 subgroups of our students, one of which was our special education students. Based on that direction, we made the decision to give our parents of our ABLE, ARISE, and SUCCEED programs the options to come back face-to-face with our certified teachers and instructional assistants. With on-site support and special ed programming beginning on the 17th, a Teams live meeting was held to go over our safe practices and protocols. The Teams event featured presentations by our lead nurse, Mrs. Lisa Alexander, and our Executive Director of Facilities, Mr. Chris Deeg, and our Special Education Director, Mrs. Holly Harper. In addition, Mr. Deeg ensured that all personal protective equipment was delivered to all sites this morning. On to our Business Services Department. The Business Services, Operations, Information Technology, and Academic Services Departments continue to meet weekly regarding COVID-19 related needs and CARES Act funding eligibility, as well as expenses that will be outside of the CARES Act. The district is also evaluating the Enrollment Stability Grant Program criteria that was published by the Governor's Office on August 7th of 2020. The Enrollment Stability Grant Program is designed to provide school districts with predictability and draws from the state's CARES Act allocation to ensure every participating school can receive a grant award that minimizes the funding impact of enrollment declines by guaranteeing the greater of 98% of a school's 2019-2020 enrollment or their 40th day 2020-2021 ADM as enhanced by funding online learners. To be eligible for this grant, the key accountability measures must be met by the school district. The final award will be up to a one-time formula amount for eligible COVID-19 related expenses incurred between March 1st, 2020 and December 4th of 2020. Final awards will be announced on a rolling basis and after the 40th day of instruction, and it is anticipated the latest notice of final awards will be announced on or about November 11th of this year. To Human Resources. We continue to support our employees as they deal with all aspects of COVID. Our benefits department has worked with numerous staff members during the virtual teaching environment. 35 of our employees have chosen to resign, and we have had 5 full retirements. We continue to invest in the field of public education. In collaboration with colleges and universities, we will place 32 teachers with our highly skilled staff during the fall semester. These future educators will be impacting student learning across 18 different school sites. We continue to hire and are continually seeking to fill our open positions. Our greatest need at the moment is filling our special ed positions, and we are utilizing our contracted agency to fill those positions. Working with ESI, we have been able to fill some teaching positions, and those teachers have received training in the Florida virtual curriculum. On to public relations. We continue to communicate with staff and our community through this ever-changing environment. You can see a snapshot of where we stand with stats on some of our messaging. We have shifted much of our parent messaging to our principals and continue to provide them with support they need to enhance their school messenger emails and calls and update their social media. Thank you, and I now pass it back to you, Dr. Reynolds.
Dr. Reynolds, if it's okay with you and team, knowing that you're going to be speaking to kind of from this point on, is it okay if we pause here and allow the board members to ask questions around our current, or ask Mr. Duguid questions around his presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. We are, my portion is simply to talk about the benchmarks, so that might be helpful. But it's up to you. We can do either one.
Okay. Okay. You guys okay with Dr. Reynolds proceed and or okay, let's do that. Because well, you might answer questions that we
maybe
that we have. So.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Duguid. You did a wonderful job summarizing an enormous amount of work that has gone on over the last 5 months. So thank you for that. So by now, most of us have seen the Arizona Department of Health Services school reopening benchmarks that were released last Thursday. The state has provided us a framework that breaks the risk of opening schools into 3 areas. We have red, which represents substantial risk, yellow, which represents moderate risk, and we have green that represents minimal risk. They also then provide 3 benchmarks for schools to reach that moderate or yellow category prior to being able to bring large groups of students back onto our campus for in-person learning. Those benchmarks include the first one, which represents numbers of cases per 100,000 people. That number needs to be less than 100 for 2 weeks, or a decline in weekly average cases for 2 consecutive weeks. The second benchmark is percent positivity. That needs to be below 7% for 2 consecutive weeks. And the third is COVID-like illness resulting in hospital visits needs to be less than 10% for 2 consecutive weeks. These 3 benchmarks would get us into the yellow or the moderate risk and allow us to begin to provide a hybrid model of in-person and virtual learning, represented, I think, in one of our public comments with the potential of an AA-BB model. To get to the minimal risk, or the green category, we need cases less than 10 per 100,000 people. We need a percent positivity rate less than 5%, and COVID-like illness less than 5%. We are expecting to get the most updated data from the Maricopa County Health Department tomorrow. they have committed to getting us data in a variety of ways. We're expecting data given to us by city, by school district, by zip code. This data will be helpful in us making the most educated decision for our community. And then on Monday, after we have the data, we'll take the data and the benchmarks, and I will be working with Mrs. Airy, Mr. Duguid, and we will be meeting with the medical advisory team that we put together to ask them to help us analyze that data so that we can provide an update to you and hopefully our community next week. So that's the conclusion of the benchmarks.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions, comments? Ms. Stone?
I'm not ready yet.
Okay. Ms. Saya Martinez.
For me, I'm gonna chunk it up, and by section, I'm gonna start with the special ed, just because it's top of mind with August 17th, starting around the corner. And I know, Ms. Underhill, you had some questions as well, so I will pause when we want, if we want to, anybody else want to address the special ed section. Thank you for that update, and we have received a lot of concerns from our staff and parents about the governor's executive order, so I appreciate the insight that you have provided. When I look at opening August 17th and I look at the percent of special ed students, since I started, it was around 11% of the 37,000. And when I define special ed, I mean those students with 504s, IEPs. Is that the definition we're going with? What is the definition of a special needs student?
I probably should keep this on. And yes, any that has a 504 or an IEP for speech or for OT, PT, learning disabilities.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So with that train of thought, if I recall, around 11%.
Mrs. Martinez, are you referring to special education returning on Monday?
Well, I'm just trying to start a baseline, because basically I'm comparing the data that you presented. You said that about 432 students will be showing up. And so I'm trying to get how we got from, if 11% of our students have an IEP 504, identified special ed, which I had my phone out just to do the calculator, promise. 37,000, 11%, about 4,000 students, and we have 432 students showing up. What was the response rate of our surveys? And then how did we go back and ensure that those parents that did not answer to those surveys, that we ensure, what oversight and insurance that all our parents were reached? So that's my first concern, so I'll pause there.
And my apologies, I should have included the numbers of our self-contained special ed of our Arise, Able, and Succeed programs in my update, and I did not. That number is about 350 to add to the 432. To answer the second part of your question on the survey results, it was about 1,540 responses to that. And those, as I mentioned, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into it, the reason, where those were taken, where the parents were that responded and what schools they attended, is the way that we selected the sites to have our on-site learning take place. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
and with all due respect, I have concerns on how we did not get a full picture. Because if some of our parents did not look at their emails because they were working and saw bombarded communications, did not, for whatever reason, they didn't answer, we're missing a huge demographic because that's only the special ed. That's not even including the students that have ILLPs. And so how are those calculated? I'm just really concerned that not all of our parents know about the situation.
And again, I apologize if I haven't been clear. The 432 will have special ed populations in there, so students with IEPs, but it will also include students that are on free and reduced, our McKinney-Vento students, as well as our free and reduced lunch students and students that are in care of the state as well as it says in the executive order, anyone that needs a safe place to go can also attend.
Efforts. We made special attention, and that was through Mr. Stevens, who oversees our McKinney-Vento. He did a lot of follow-up to make sure we could connect with some families that might not have your typical access. So I know the length of, or the extent of his outreach included visiting local food banks for families that may visit there, also reaching out with local grocery stores and message boards. He also provided direct phone calls to make sure we're reaching at least some of our most vulnerable students. So his communication efforts to reach those students in particular, our homeless students, that information was all captured and logged to make sure we were following up with those specific needs.
Was there any tangible data numbers associated with that? Just because I'm still only seeing 1,500 responses, and if you include all those other criteria, we're talking about a larger population, and that means that the percentage is even less of a response rate.
Can I just want to clarify one thing. So, sorry. So my understanding is that the special ed students that are coming back are particularly self-contained, right? So we are bringing back students with severe needs. And then in addition to those students that are on IEPs for speech, for other things like that, are still receiving services just virtually. So we're not serving those students. So we are still, I just want to clarify that.
Well,
and then the on-site learning was open to all students with a need. So I just want to clarify that we're talking about different things. Not, I mean, you know.
Right, and that's a whole nother question, because from my understanding, when we explain to what are the qualifications of the staff, and you're talking about meeting these needs of OT and PT, I question, are they qualified staff to meet all these needs of IEPs and OT and PT and speech, because it's such a vulnerable population?
So in regards to, again, our Arise, Able, and Succeed program students that will be coming back. And again, the parents were given that choice whether they wanted to have them come back face-to-face or not. Those services will be in place for those students. As far as the on-site support piece, that's the governor's executive order, where all the individual groups of students that I mentioned earlier, that is to allow them for a safe place to come in, log in, and do their work, as we will not be providing services to those students in person. Does that
Yes, and just to highlight or to revisit Ms. Underhill, it's not necessarily to meet their services on their IEPs or 504s. We did offer that to them to come in, and just so that we don't go around in circles, my whole concern was at the very beginning is communication. Are we reaching out to all these demographics? And the numbers that I've been presented with tonight, I don't believe it's sufficient outreach.
Well, the number that we don't have is our request that each of our schools make contact with every one of their children. And so they're reaching out to every one of their children to find out where they are, what their needs are, how's it going, those kinds of things. So each of our schools is reaching out to every one of their children.
How is that data captured and rolled up to the district?
Yeah, we don't have that data tonight, but our individual schools would have that data.
Going forward as we move, I would like to see that data, because it's all ultimately, I want to ensure that we are making contact with this most vulnerable population first as a result of the governor's executive order. Then comes into play of meeting their needs as we transition. I recognize this is a brand new environment, and these challenges are to be expected. I want to set realistic expectations for our parents that continue to email us, as well as our staff. So that was the number one concern when I think about that special group and services. So I will pause there as we continue and move forward.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so along those lines, and Dr. Reynolds, you just mentioned each site is calling on their students, their more vulnerable kids, if you will. Now, do we have, and has the state cascaded down, and then do we have our own I'm going to call it a rubric, right? So are we determining vulnerabilities based on, certified McKinney-Vento or ESS students, or do we have a rubric that goes beyond those labels, if you will? Because, there's no doubt that our sites, have a close relationship with each one of their families and their kids. And there may be some students who aren't certified McKinney-Vento, et cetera, but still may have a need, right? And still to, enter into, a face-to-face environment being on Monday. So I guess my overall question is, outside of the very specific designations, if you will, and how we define our students, our most vulnerable population, when we take a look at, from an empathy and compassionate perspective, do we have somewhat of a rubric that everybody goes off of to really define, that goes beyond those labels, if you will?
Right, so our rubric is if a child needs something, that our teacher, right, our administrators at the site are going to work to do whatever we can to make sure that we fulfill that need.
Perfect. Ms. Andrea? Thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
So I just have a couple other questions on the on-site learning. I do have questions related to the virtual piece, but I'll hold one at a time. I saw the ratios were on there, and that the 1 to 9 to 15 or whatever, and I'm assuming that's standard with ADHS, and that's great, so we're set there. One question I had is, well, first of all, I really, really, really want to thank the City of Peoria employees, their staff that are coming in to do this work for us. Childcare is a significant concern in our communities right now. Many, many, many childcare centers have had to close their doors, and when we return, it's going to be a challenge that continues. So I'm very, very grateful to those childcare workers that are coming in to do that work, and I just want that to be said. Secondly, I want to say a lot of our parents are having challenges with the technology at home, et cetera, and we're expecting our staff that are coming in to help these kids. So I just want to make sure, like, on site, are we going to have some folks available to help these City of Peoria staff as they help our children learn? So I'm just curious about that.
Yes, we will. We will have certainly our administration, our land techs that move about the district that will be available, as well as our paraprofessional librarians that will be available for on-call for situations like that, yes.
That's great. Thank you. I think that's all I had on that. So, all right, thank you.
President Sandoval.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to follow up when you talk about services. Have we thought about reaching out to Raising Special Kids or DDD, Developmental Disability, for the state and partnering to service this group as they have special needs?
I believe, I'm not sure if we have or not. Mrs. Airy, do you know?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Seha Martinez, I'm not familiar with those organizations in the special education realm. I'm not sure if Dr. Bell maybe is, so I apologize. I'm not sure.
Do you know some of the testing? Yes. Good evening. Thank you. I'm not aware that those organizations, that we've contacted them to support our on-site support plan. However, our special education staff, classified and certified, will be on deck in at least 8 of these schools. So we will have our professionals ready to go, and that was kind of the intent of that big live Teams meeting to support these self-contained special education kids.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. We received an email and a presentation that we have a shortage or a need in the special ed department. How are the special ed teachers and staff approached about putting themselves in a position to serve our most vulnerable population?
For sure, it's been challenging. That's why Sean and team, including our lead nurse, Lisa Alexander, Holly Harper with special education, a team met with over 300 staff members that will be coming back to us to support our kids on Monday. Those conversations included those 7 healthy habits PPE that would be available. There was a large Q&A that even came into today in answering those questions. So while our staff is nervous, at times we're doing everything we can to support them so that they have some degree of confidence as they come back and work with kids.
Thank you. And as we move forward, just to continue to hear their voice, whether a survey, like our survey rating, and I would also, my experiences with raising special kids, raising my own son, have had phenomenal experience. Reach out to them. They have a lot of webinars and support staff. Maybe they have some options to consider, and as well as the state, the DDD services that may be able to offer some additional solutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ms. Sam Martinez. I mean, along those lines, yeah, Ms. Harper did mention that, in fact, she sent out a link. There's a listing of these, I think she's calling them tuition out schools, these partners that we do partner with, you know, throughout the year to broaden our bandwidth and help us serve, you know, our ESS students. That said, you know, I do know that ADA has, I'm assuming, a certification that's probably is focused in and around, you know, this environment that we're in, right? So do we know, based on that list, how many of those partners that we partnered with in the past are still on there now or are going through the certification process? I guess my overall question is this: beginning on Monday, are we going to open up, you know, with serving our ESS students with partners that the same partners or partners that we partnered with in the past? Are there any gaps there?
We will be relying on our partners for that service. The students that we're having back, however, on Monday are kids in our 3 self-contained program. Those kids are at Sunflower Center. They are also our Arise and ABLE programs. So those are self-contained special ed that our own staff will be a part of. Our partnerships, when kids go to tuition out, our teams work with those facilities to ensure they're operational, et cetera, and ready to serve our students. I'm not aware that we have added any additional partnerships for that, President Sandoval, but I can find that out for you.
Yeah, and I think overall my question is just in and around ensuring that those partners that we've used in the past, that we trust and have a great relationship with, are on that list.
Absolutely,
ADA
thank you.
certified, so thank you. Ms. Pingrelli? Ms. Dunn?
I do have one question in this area. A lot of our special needs kids have tactile issues, and there are going to be issues with the masks. They're not going to wear them. How are we handling that? Because I've seen it myself. Just rip it off, throw it away. They won't wear it.
We do have PPE available for our staff. We understand that these students, particularly some of the students that you're referring to, would find it very difficult to wear a mask. So we are working with our teachers and our classified support staff on some of those protocols as well. I'd also like to reiterate, while we've reached out to people to ask them if they're interested in coming to that safe place at school for to work on their virtual learning, we've also asked our community who's interested in coming back. And so we still have a population in response to our Gen Ed survey as well as our special education survey that families are choosing to stay virtual and keep their students at home and not come into our schools. That includes some of these special education kids as well as some of the students that you referenced earlier. Our intent, however, is to bring kids back as soon as we can in small groups for those related services and needs, and hope that as our situation gets better in our county, that we'll be able to do that sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Bell. Dr. Reynolds, quick question for you around the benchmarks. it's clearly defined, those three categories that you mentioned that came down from the state. As we take a look at, our leadership position as PUSD and ensuring that, how we localize those benchmarks and really take a look at, every district has a story and look at our story. What benchmarks do we have that, are in addition to the benchmarks that have come down from the state to determine, when it's most safe to go into the phase 2, kind of that hybrid, educational environment. I know we have our task force of medical experts, which is fantastic, but are there other measures outside of those benchmarks that have been communicated by the state that we will look at to make sure that, from a PUSD perspective, that it is most safe to get into that next phase?
So you referenced our medical advisory team, and that is one of the tasks that we are working with them on to help us determine if there are any other factors that we should be considering as we come back. But right now, we're focused in on the three that the state has provided.
Okay, and the other reason I bring it up, we always talk about morality and ethics. There's the law, right? And then there's morals. And I always use the example, I might use it with you in the past, but with the Titanic, right? They had enough lifeboats that they had to have based on the law. But if they would have had enough lifeboats to accommodate every passenger, it turns out that the number of passengers that survived were equal to the number of lifeboats that they had. So if they would have been, from an ethical perspective and morality, had more lifeboats on there to accommodate, all the passengers, we could have had a lot less fatalities. So we always talk about it, just morality and ethics. I know as a team, in your character and your leadership, that you have that top of mind as you lead the district through this time. I just always want to make sure that those have weighted voices in our decision to move into that next phase.
And I completely understand your metaphor. I prefer to think of us as the Queen Mary II rather than
Titanic.
the Titanic.
I apologize for that.
President Sandoval, I just want to add
Yes.
to that statistic. So when you, Dr. Reynolds, when your task force comes with the benchmarks, my two ask is also include staffing models. So if we do go to the AABB and we have to split our large class sizes already, how many staffing, what is the right number to make sure we create a safe space? The other piece to add to that, and that comes from when we had a lot of employees call out sick a couple years ago. I got a call from our superintendent said, according to the report, we don't have enough staff members to open up schools safely. So I would like to see the staffing numbers included in that benchmark. And the last thing is transparency. I receive the email all the time from, no matter if they enjoyed virtual learning or are having challenges, our community is asking for transparency. And the way I'm interpreting transparency is easy to read data. Instead of me going to click here, it's here's the benchmark. Is it a check mark? This is the numbers that we're looking for, check X, something easy. And I already see kudos to the district already putting those benchmarks on the district website. So I appreciate that. And it's how can we translate this very difficult situation to easy to read for that transparency piece. So that's my ask. Thank you.
Ms. Andrea. Thank you, Mr. Chase.
Okay, so I have just a couple things. One thing is that I know the medical advisory team is going to be looking at the benchmarks, and my understanding is they're also going to help us review our mitigation plan to make sure that that is ready. So I'm assuming that without having additional benchmarks, another piece of that work will just be to make sure that we are able to implement our mitigation plan and that it is aligned as we're hoping. Is that correct?
Yes, do remember that this group of advisors, their expertise is in epidemiology, their expertise is in research, is in public health. When it comes to specifically how we work with our facilities, those kinds of things, I think what I would say, looking at Mr. Duguid and Ms. Airy, is that they would defer a lot of the school-specific items to our experts. But yes, we are absolutely bouncing those ideas off from them so they can let us know where they may have some suggestions.
Great. Yeah, it seems like those two really go together, right? Like the benchmarks can be there, but we got to be like ready
Able to pull it off.
Right. And then the other thing I had a question about was just, there's a slide in the presentation about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. I don't know if we can get to it or not, but I just was curious because we've been talking about hybrid. It's been thrown around a few times, but on this, I don't necessarily see that. And so I guess I just want to make, and maybe we're not there yet. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what our plan is at that point yet, but I mean, is that something that we're still considering? I know it was part of our contingency plan on our mitigation, on our back-to-school plan, but I don't necessarily see that reflected in that particular slide, so I was just curious where we're at with that.
Yeah, so one of the confusing aspects of this is that we've been working on our plan, our phased-in approach that we continue to talk about on a regular basis. And so trying to merge the language between the state's plan and our plan, and so we'll continue to hone in on that. These colors do not represent the same things that the state benchmark for reopening represent.
No, I do. I understand that. And I get that these are kind of how we see us moving into some of these phases. But what I just don't see on there at all is where it says hybrid. So I don't know if we're actually intending to address that or potentially look at that, or I'm just curious if that's still a contingency plan.
Yeah, so you'll start to see that as we begin to merge these two plans.
Okay. Got it, I think. Okay. And the reason I'm asking that is because I heard that public comment from one of our teacher representatives saying we kind of want to know like what's going to be in the next phase. So that's where sorry if I'm just dull here.
No,
I'm not
no.
catching on, but I just want to kind of know if that is actually still within our contingency plan or not. So thank you. I had another question, sorry, and it was related to the opening of schools. I know our preschool opening has been pushed back again to after Labor Day, like our current theoretical opening. Has anything changed with that, or are we still good for our preschool plan?
Thank you for that, Mrs. Corey.
That's
oh,
me.
no, yeah, sorry. Yes, they are still slated to open on September 8th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ms. Pingrell?
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to ask a few questions, one on financial. So are we guaranteed a percentage of last year's budget, no matter how many students come back and how many students are virtual?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Pengarelli, members of the board, your question aligns with the stabilization grant that Mr. Duguid mentioned that the district does plan to apply for. And the grant does provide the option for a district to be funded at 98% of fiscal year 2020's ADM or enrollment, or 40th day enrollment this year, including online. However, districts do have to apply, and based on that application process, the funding would be made available. It's not guaranteed without the application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then do we know how many, it looked like there was about 30% of the students that chose to go online?
That's accurate.
Okay.
Yes.
And then how many students did not choose, or their parents did not choose to send them back to Peoria? Do we have a number on that?
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Pingarelli. Right now, we are showing, we have not enrolled all of our preschool students, so those numbers are not in play. We're approximately down 950 students over the course of from last year to this.
Okay, thank you. And then the other questions are for Dr. Reynolds. The next medical task force is going to be meeting this next week?
Yes, Monday.
Okay, Monday. And I know we'd spoken before. Can all board members, is it going to be teams?
It is going to be virtual. Yes.
Okay. And can all board members sit in? I guess if we sit, I mean, no comments, but to sit in and to listen, and if we do, I'm assuming it would have to be noticed?
Yes, if we were all going to be there.
Okay.
But if we're not all going to be there, so we can work through that in the morning and find out who would like to sit in on that.
Okay, thank you. And then the other, I just want to make sure that in that group, I know we have a child psychologist, that we look at the whole child. I know we're looking at numbers and positivity rates and such, but I think there are a lot of things that are going to be showing up a year, 2 years, a decade from now, from our decisions now. So I would like to stress the committee look at everything. And I think that's it right now.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli.
President Sandoval, I would
Yes,
like to
ma'am.
add to that. As fellow governing board members, we've been in a situation where we've asked committees to look at data. If there is a specific piece of data when serving the whole child that you want this committee to review, my ask is that it be forthcoming, that nothing is held back, so that we as a board can consider everything. And I definitely agree with Ms. Pangarelli, as serving the whole child is so important. And it's good to hear that conversation is coming up, because to Ms. Pangarelli's point, what goes on now, we will be working through in 1, 2, 3 years. And the next board and administration needs to be prepared with resources on how to prioritize some of those situations. And right now, if we're talking about mental health, our counselor to student ratio is not acceptable. And if we're going to go into this new environment, this is something, an investment we really need to consider as how we're going to move forward. So I appreciate that. And my ask of this board is to be very clear if you want this committee to look at specific data to bring forward to everybody.
Thank you for that. So in public comment today and through email leading up to this board meeting, we've all received angst, thoughts, positive opportunities. That said, how is, from the field, which is an invaluable source of information of what's going on, how things are going, where some of the hurdles exist, et cetera, how does that information from the field cascade to the district office, to those individuals that can actually be a solution for some of those opportunities? What is our process to make sure that information gets down to us in a timely fashion, and when it's received, not who, but just how it's received, and then, kind of distributed internally to those departments that are appropriate based on the hurdle, if you will. So, is that you, Mr. Good? On the, I don't know if Dr. Reynolds or Danielle, or just that's the question. How are those opportunities, those hurdles being cascaded to the district?
You're nodding.
I'm sorry.
You're looking at me. So, in a variety of ways. Probably the most important way is our district level teams, the representatives that we have that go out to the sites and talk with individuals. I think that's probably the most important as far as building relationships and really listening and hearing their concerns, their celebrations. we have, we do focus, rightly so, on a portion of our employees who have very valid concerns about coming back and their safety. But we also hear from our employees who are very excited to come back and see their students again. And so you really get that as we go out and visit the programming in the sites. But we also rely on our site leadership within their leadership teams, within their site teams, to be able to be representatives of their individual schools, as well as the culture within this district of teachers, emailing, calling. I've met with several. I've emailed many back and forth and talked on the phone with many. Again, listening and hearing their celebrations and their concerns.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And I think one of the things that we talked about, before entering this academic year is keeping our foot on the pedal with regard to not only from a communications perspective, but also how we continue to capture a pulse of what is going on, out there at the sites, right? So does it make sense, no different than convening a resident expert task force with medical experts, including the mental health environment, to Ms. Pignarelli's point, to convene a site task force of teachers and staff? I think with Teams and technology, as we know, it is conducive to the ease of bringing people together, right? So we don't have to be there face to face, but I just feel that would be a thought, around just bringing those individuals together who are on the front lines to be able to communicate, what their angst is, what some of the hurdles are. And I'm not talking about, an environment where it becomes a session of complaint is probably the only word I can think of right now, but more of a solutions-oriented session. But so that's my thought. Dr. D, you have your mask off, so.
President Sandoval, members of the board, just wanted to make a comment, if you don't mind, in regards to the comments that Dr. Reynolds had as well. From what I'm seeing on behalf of Human Resources, it's about relationships. And I think when you talk about capturing the voice of our staff, it happens in numerous ways. Early on, a comment was made, and gosh, it could have been April or so, when it was asked of us, will we try to accommodate for those with health needs? When we make decisions, will we try to support those individuals? You saw in the statistics tonight that Mr. Duguid shared, 90-something% of the staff that have come to our benefits department with a health need have received an accommodation to support them in a virtual environment or in some way, shape, or form to have them be successful in the workplace, right? So, but that started with them coming and sharing, hey, I have this need, and so therefore, that conversation back and forth, as Dr. Reynolds spoke to, has made a huge difference. I certainly would have to highlight our site leaders, our school principals, our department heads who are having that day-to-day interaction with their staff, whether it's through a virtual environment or face-to-face environment. They, without a doubt, communicate effectively with us, certainly because we often in Human Resources have to support those conversations and try to help those employees. We're finding out, as you can guess, during this environment, it's a tough time for some of our people, and they need to have just a multitude of resources at their fingertips to help them achieve the goals that we have, right, to support our students. So I guess I want to highlight them, and also Dr. Bell's team, our executive director group. We have our leaders of principals out there all day long, building those relationships and having critical conversations and just a really effective communication on behalf of the leadership and what's happening at every single site, so that we as a cabinet can support to the greatest extent that we can. So just wanted to bring that to you as well, because it's all about relationships, and I'm seeing it play out on behalf of all of our employees.
Yeah, without question, and I'm not at all questioning the relationships that we have within our district and the building of trusting teams throughout PUSD. I guess what I'm suggesting is in addition to, how we're virtualizing, our normal face-to-face environment in this day and age, including from an HR perspective, does it make sense to formalize a process, that is focused in and around, again, these opportunities and hurdles that are taking place in the front lines to be able to get those communicated quickly in a timely fashion, in an organized fashion, so as it gets received here at the district level, it is received in a way that it's stratified and or even categorized based on the different verticals throughout the district office. And then solutions take place, in a timely fashion. Ms. Harry.
President Sandoval, if I could just offer one addition to what has been shared. I think you may have been familiar with the employee chats that we have done in the past, which was kind of our way of going out site by site, connecting with every staff. They were nice that they were in person, getting to visit each of those campuses all together for our team and get to share some information and updates, but also to hear from our staff. And we'll be starting those again. Of course, pre-pandemic, we had thought this, and this will be really kind of the first touch point to introduce in a little bit more of an informal setting our new superintendent to our staff. But we are planning to start those back up again using Teams, so a way to kind of connect virtually with each of those schools and our sites, our food and nutrition, our transportation, all of our different work groups, and to make that connection. The real key, I think, to add on is just to provide multiple ways for employees to connect, because we know that some may want to attend something in person, some want to tweet us at Inside Peoria, some want to get on Facebook, and so we try to provide multiple avenues for our staff, whether they want to connect with their principal or their K-12 or email us, just to make sure that we have all lines, depending on their comfort level, that they can connect with us.
Gotcha. Yeah, and thank you for that. And for me, I think this would be augmenting the multiple channels that we currently utilize to allow individuals to communicate to the district office, right? Not suggesting at all a replacement. Just a augmentation of what's already taken place. And I think to Ms. Pingarelli's point around educating the whole child, what I'm also wanting to influence is how we're supporting the whole teacher and staff, right? Not only from a facilities perspective, technology perspective, but certainly their health and wellness as well.
President Sandoval.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to add, I definitely agree with that sentiment of capturing quantitative data and some experience. And Mr. Gay, I would like to hear your technology experience play a role. From my professional experience, I've seen NFS scores, net favorable scores, after-call surveys, NPS scores, net promoter scores. We have Teams that does and Microsoft Office that does a lot of things, and I'm quite familiar with. It tracks the efficiency of your time management, and there are reports that can be sent to you on a weekly basis that says you could do 25% and reutilize your time. But where I'm coming with that is that Microsoft Office, if there's appointments scheduled, is there an after-call email that will be sent to whoever you met? So if I'm a principal and I meet with my teacher, it's automatic as a follow-up survey to that experience as a staff member. If I'm in a district administrator and I have a conversation with a parent, I'm following up with an automatic email after call survey conversation. So we're capturing that data and it's automatic. There are tons of tools. I learned this week, I'm learning about Dynamics 365 within Microsoft Office. So we pay a lot of money for these tools, much like board docs. Are we using these tools to the best of their ability? And in capturing that data is going to help us make those better informed decisions. So I echo Mr. Sandoval, President Sandoval's insights.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. And I think what I'm hearing is just that we have so many talented folks out there, and this is large, large challenge that all of us are dealing with. And I don't think anyone is asking anybody here in this room to create another sort of communication channel or something like that that you have to monitor and set up. I think what we're maybe hearing is that we have folks out there that really want to help, and they're seeing things because they're in it day to day, and they know the challenges, and they have some course correction options, fixes that they would like to share, and I'll share some of those that I've been, specifically learned about. But I think that even if it was as simple as principals once a week said, hey, I'm going to jump on Zoom at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, feedback, give it to me, I'll record it, and they can either summarize it and send it to you guys. But there's really these, I think, nuggets that we could find out that could significantly help us, all of us, and it doesn't have to be on you. These teachers want to do it. They want to share where they're having challenges and where they think they could improve. So I don't want it to feel like we're saying you're not doing something. You are doing everything, but I think that we're missing some potential right now help that we could get if we could just have a simple way for our teachers just to connect and just share with us some things. So, from my standpoint, I think that technology is fabulous, but if there was a way for principals to just say, hey, let me know what can we do this week that, course correct a little bit, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I do have like some specific things, but I can hold on. So.
Thank you for that. I was just going to say, and I think what you're hearing from this team is that is happening.
Thank you very much. I guess I just want to, I hear a lot of things about staff, and I just want to remind us what we're here for. Everybody is here for the students and the parents, just to put it back to reality. We're asking parents to become teachers, to rearrange their schedules, to work on weekends so they can get time off through the week. Some have lost their jobs. They're paying taxes, and they're having to do double, triple duty. They're getting extremely stressed. I'd like to ask when our 40th day is, specifically, and if you can tell the community exactly what that means.
Thank you, Mrs. Pingarelli, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. When it comes to funding for public school districts, it's based on enrollment, or ADM, which is an average daily membership. You've heard me talk about that when we bring our budget forward, and it's weighted for our ELL and special education population. There's snapshots throughout the year related to funding. Typically, the 100th day is a critical day, but the 40th day this year is September 30th, and that is what the stability grant is based on.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to stress, the longer we're out, the more damage we're doing to the children, to the families. I would like to get back before September 8th, but for me, that is the very last date that I think is acceptable.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli, and thank you for your comment around the parents, how they've have been asked, to, certainly we've always had a great relationship with our families, but we are asking, leaning on our parents as well to, help in this virtual environment. But I think, where I'm coming from is, and it's been said before, we've gotten into this environment is, the saying in and around our teachers' teaching environment, certainly equates to our children's learning environment. And, I definitely want to make sure that, certainly our teachers and staff are supported in a way that, once again, they come to work inspired every day to ensure that our students, are prepared to shape tomorrow. So, but I do not at all discount what we are asking our families to do, and certainly what our students are going through this environment. So that said, I think it's critical to make sure that our teachers and staff are supported to ensure that their relationships with their students and their families are such that they can be support outlets for those individuals. I heard a story from a teacher who was talking about the fact that she's never had such a close relationship with some of the parents of her students prior to going through what we're going through. And I think it's really brought forth some very healthy connections between our sites, our teachers, staff, and those families. So, again, I don't, it's, my comments certainly, include all of our stakeholders without question, but thank you for recognizing those families.
President Sandoval?
Yes, Ms. Martinez.
I have two topics, one to follow up and then a new topic related to this that we have not discussed yet. The first one is when we consider, Dr. Bell, measuring what is detrimental to our children in a virtual environment, I hear what Ms. Pangrelli is saying, and everybody is dealing with new circumstances, but there's been online learning. I had a cohort and received my master's. There are children that are on online learning even prior to COVID. What I see is, how are we measuring success and how are we measuring failures? Is it long times in front of a computer and frustration because they can't get Wi-Fi? Yes, that's a failure. What are we doing about that piece? And how are we telling our children and coaching our parents to monitor screen time? Is it detrimental? I saw my son and I see children interacting via Teams and saying, I can't have a time right now because I have to enter my Teams meeting and then I have to have a small group. Time management is a skill set that our children need to master even when they leave into the global economy. So we collectively, as preparing our students, which I 100% agree why we're here is our children, are we giving them the skill set to prepare to meet tomorrow? And tomorrow we don't know if there's going to be another global pandemic 10, 20, 50 years from now. Do our children have that resiliency, that grit of 8 days when things are falling apart? How do I problem solve? How do I reach out to my resources? How do I advocate for myself? I am teaching my children, and those around me to use the tools and resources that are available. Advocacy, self-advocacy is a skill our children need. And if we don't train them and teach them those skill sets, we are doing a disservice. So I would really like this board and administration and parents, what is success and how are we measuring that? Because 8 days in a failed virtual environment, to me, with all due respect, is not enough time. So we need to be serious about how are we measuring what is a successful environment and how much does it cost us, because it's not free. And who's going to fund it? So that is something serious we have to consider in this new ways of working, is what success looks like and what is progress and what is an appropriate timeline to determine that. The last thing I want to highlight is athletics, which we have not talked about at all, and we received emails. The governor has made an order to close down gyms, yet we have an email sitting in our communication from our athletic director stating we are opening weight rooms. Help me understand why the governor's order does not apply, or how we disregard the safety or ensuring safety. Just help me understand that athletic piece.
Sure. So each week, Mr. Ernster, our district athletic director, Ms. Lopez-Lara, and I meet to discuss what phase we're going to move into or stay in, perhaps, as has been in the case a number of times throughout the summer as kids have come back in athletics. So regarding the safety aspect of opening our weight rooms, using the National Federation of High Schools and many other CDC, things like that, what we have determined in our weight rooms is the number of students that can safely be in and socially distance by racks in the weight room. So if we have 8 racks in main racks in our weight rooms, we have a total of 16 kids and a coach in that room, which if you've been in our weight rooms before, you know they're pretty big. And the protocol for cleaning is that between each set, those students and coaches are cleaning the benches. Excuse me, the coaches are cleaning the benches. So they also are in masks the entire time, except for when they are exerting themselves. We have had discussions with our athletic directors and our coaches that if you've been in a weight room to spot somebody for a bench press, for example, they should not be maxing out weight so that you're standing in anywhere close proximity to that. So those are the guidelines that we've used to make the decision to open up our weight rooms going forward in this phase that we're in now.
Explanation. I appreciate that explanation. And I just think about our athletes. We've received reports of COVID cases amongst our community, within our district. And I do have concerns. We're learning about national organizations shutting down their fall sports. And we have not opened classrooms. This is from my values and my upbringing. My father told me if I wasn't well enough to go to school, I'm definitely not going to practice, because academics should always come first. And so I'm just having a hard time justifying to our parents who have shared their concerns, and with a governor who says gyms are closed. So.
And that is absolutely valid, and we've received some of those same questions. I think an important distinction is that public gyms are closed. Our gyms are private.
Yep. So, thank you.
Ms. Stone, further comments?
I want to address the fact that this pandemic has changed people. There is a spirit of fear that is painful for me to see. I want to give a personal example of something that has happened this last week and a half to someone that I know. This man was not feeling well, feeling very ill, went to the hospital, was told he had pneumonia, released with, they gave him a test, obviously, and he was released with antibiotics. He was not feeling better, so he went back, and they said the oral antibiotics were not enough, so they put him on IV antibiotics, and they tested him again. Test comes back negative. I will make the story short. This gentleman was in the hospital for about 3 days. He was tested 7 times for COVID-19. His labs all came back with bacterial pneumonia. All his results were negative, and they kept testing him and kept testing him 7 times. And then he gets back another test that's negative, and the doctor comes in to tell him they're moving him to the COVID ward, to the floor with. He said, I'm 66 years old. I have diabetes. I have pneumonia and pleurisy. You're trying to kill me. It's fear. Why on earth and this was a hospital that wanted to do, and they said to him, well, he said, I'm not going on the COVID floor. It'll kill me. And they said, well, then you can just leave. and they gave him no antibiotics. He left with nothing. They had a thing on his door saying, you know, this could be a danger to your health. All these tests came back negative. Every single one of them. He didn't have COVID. He had pneumonia. I want to ask how many of these reactions are fear. I understand. You can be afraid, but we have lived through so many things in this country. Our country is so strong. Our community is strong. It seems to me that there is so much allowance of fear to run things. You know, the casino's open. You know that protests are allowed in the streets. People don't even wear masks. But we can't have school. Church is very heavily discouraged, and some pastors have been arrested for having church. People are being told they can't sing. But other things are allowed. We can go to Walmart. This thing does not prevent COVID from going anywhere. You all know that. It's polite, it's comforting, I guess, to people, but the COVID virus is so small it can pass through these like it's not there. You might as well wear a piece of lace on your face as far as stopping the virus. This country has gone through a lot. And most of the time we emerge stronger. And I am concerned for our people. I'm concerned for the people in this country, and we have lost mostly a lot of elderly people, and that bothers me. I love our elderly. I lost my mother a few years back, and I've just, but it seems to me that we're not making a lot of sense with what we do. Why are certain things okay and certain things are not when they're all groups? How are we expecting kindergartners and first graders to learn anything online? I mean, okay, my little preschooler, she has a tablet and she learns from her little games and little songs and stuff like that. It's not anything like going to school. There is nothing like peers to make you learn. Everybody knows that. When my son was little, and I mean, you know, the reading to him, if he could get another child to read to him, he'd sit and listen all day. But for mom and dad to read, it's peer-driven. Learning is peer-driven, even more than teacher-driven. And when these kids are just sitting in the house in front of a screen, which is not healthy, you're talking about the whole child. And I believe in leaving this kind of thing in the parents' hands more than us making all these decisions. And I think a lot of these things, that timeline and all that stuff, that's all political, because these people have to say what makes them look good. And I'm just going to say it. I don't even care what people think as far as politics. That has no bearing on this to me. But it seems to have become political, that you have to toe the line with this or toe the line with that, or else you're trying to kill people or something. It's ridiculous. My friend, I mean, his doctor called him and could not believe, that he was let go from the hospital without even a Z-Pack. They're overnighting him one. And it's insane how we're all digging into all the details, and it's just about fear. Some people are going to get COVID-19 when we reopen the schools. It's going to happen. If we had been open all this time, people would have gotten the flu. They would have gotten whatever was going around. And sometimes those things are fatal. And my heart breaks for anybody with health issues and stuff like that. But life has to proceed. As a community, as families, as a state, as a nation, we can't come to a standstill. And we can't ask our children to, okay, the online learning that has been implemented here, it's still got its kinks, but I think it's good. You can't ask little children to do this and succeed. You can't even ask fairly unmotivated teenagers to do this and succeed. They won't, because they don't want to. The ones that want to are going to. But you know how hard the teachers work to motivate students, and how the peer pressure helps motivate because they compete with each other. Ms. Pingarelli said that, you know, she would like to be back before I think we're jeopardizing our students' educations. I think we're jeopardizing their futures, all of them, because of the spirit of fear that has pervaded this country. And some people are afraid of the virus, and some people are afraid of being perceived as callous. I'm going to say the sooner we can open up and allow parents to make the decision on whether or not their kids go to school, the happier I'm going to be with it, and the happier our kids are going to be with it, and the more educated they're going to be, and the safer they're going to be, and the parents are going to have less stress. And I'm sorry, but we all know that all this stress and stuff leads to substance abuse among parents and students at times. And it leads to arguments in the home. Sometimes there's going to be abuse in some of the homes. That happens. We need to look at the real facts of what's going on here. People out of work or people looking for work, and all this added stress. I don't mean to be all preachy, but I love these kids. I love our community. Those that don't want to come back, there's always that option. We've through the virtual now. But those that need to come back, we need to get it ready. We need to do it as soon as possible. And I would strongly urge each of you to consider the ramifications for the entire community, state, and even our country if we do not properly educate these young people and socialize them properly, rather than, I mean, okay, we're all hooked up all the time anyway. How many of you guys have seen people talking to each other on the phone when they're just right next to each other? Our young people do that, you know, they don't speak to each other, they use their phone a lot of the time. They'll be sitting at the same table having lunch and just texting each other. We were already there. And I guess I need to conclude here. My request and my desire and my heart's wish is that we don't let fear of any kind rule us. That we get our kids back in school with their parents permission, agreement, the ones that want to. And that we move on. So that's, I'm afraid of where this will go, because it seems like to me, every time things look better, all of a sudden it looks worse. I heard a statistic on that business about now the kids are getting it. They had to have tested like 8,000 kids a day to get that statistic. They didn't do that. I don't know what's going on with that. It's a promotion of a spirit of fear. And I think we need to rise above it. So, thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Stone. Ms. Pingrelli. I don't think any of us in this room or throughout this district disagree that we want our kids back in the classroom. Our teachers say that as well. We want our kids back in the classroom as soon as possible, without question. I believe, that the fear comes with the uncertainty of the really all the unknowns that are out there. The lack of an immunization, even the testing that we do have, and the ability to get results back in a timely fashion, et cetera. There are just so many unknowns that I believe is potentially the genesis of that fear that's out there. I think, for me, Ms. San Martinez, you brought up, kind of the measures and what's considered successful, and, and our baselines and our benchmarks. And, we have those numbers cascaded down, from our states that were derived or really informed, by, resident experts, individuals in the health field, et cetera, to determine, help districts determine, when it's the most safe environment to return to school. I think for me, we can extend a school year if needed to, accommodate potential opportunities that we may have realized in the virtual environment, but we cannot extend a life that has been lost. And with that said, for me, I'm glad we have the benchmarks. It is smart to follow the data and the science. And I can't agree with a date that is somewhat arbitrary, that doesn't have substance to really allow us to make an informed decision, a responsible decision, on behalf of all those that we're responsible for. So that said, it's our last board meeting, we announced that we would open when it's safe, and that's where I sit, that our school district should open when it is safe for all of the human lives that we're responsible for. Ms. Underhill, you had, I guess, some specifics that you wanted to go over earlier.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I think, it's really important that we all share our perspectives, and I think we all share that perspective that we want what's best for our kids, and that we recognize that being in school is like no other. But, I agree with how President Sandoval stated that we need to make sure that we're safe. And so what we're doing now is trying to make sure that we can do that. And what we're focusing on now is really making a go of this virtual learning. And so I had just gotten some feedback from a couple teachers at a high school level and at an elementary level, just about some specific things, more not so philosophical like you guys, wow, but just more about the nitty-gritty of how things are rolling out. Now, these individuals totally recognize we're in, day 8, or what are we in? Not even day 8, but and that, we're trying to get things going, and they totally understand that, and they recognize everyone's working as hard as they can. Some of the feedback at the high school level was that, well, at both levels, obviously, with the Florida Virtual, took a while to fill out. This is nothing you're to roll out. It's nothing that you didn't know. At the high school level, there seems to be some challenges because teachers were unable to kind of get to know Florida Virtual. There's some challenge with implementation right now based on the alignment of Florida Virtual with the Arizona standards and benchmarks, as well as our district assessments. And I'm sure you may have heard this before. But so there's a challenge there as far as trying to figure out how to implement Florida Virtual and how to still teach what they have taught previously, because at that level they're kind of content experts, to make sure that they get the kids to where they need to be from that district assessment level. So there's also some challenges apparently with some of the AP course requirements that they require us to buy books that we apparently either don't have or can't afford at the moment. So it's just been challenging for them to try to figure out how do we move this forward. And then a third piece is that as far as the direct instruction, so Florida Virtual is pretty, and I know this from my own son, it's pretty content heavy, it's fabulous, it's great, but as far as he went from like in the spring, you know, his teacher lecturing them, taking notes, et cetera, through Teams, and now and this is what I'm hearing from the other subjects as well, is that it's hard to figure out that virtual teaching and how that fits in with Florida Virtual because it is pretty content heavy. So like, for example, my own son has a wonderful, amazing math teacher, and she's very capable, because my other son had her too, of teaching through Teams or whatever, but she's trying to implement virtual. So she's like basically sitting on a call while they're reading through the content and watching videos on Florida Virtual, but it's trying to figure out how to implement that. So rather than just throw all these things out there, some of the sort of course corrections that we've discussed about were potentially making it at the high school level, because those are very content, you know, certified teachers, et cetera, that highly qualified, all those things, that maybe it be an option to use Florida Virtual, to allow the teachers to have flexibility with Florida Virtual, to potentially also use some of the e-campus classes, and just kind of figure out some different ways that we could be a little bit more flexible with that for teachers that, you know, are kind of set up. I mean, I know last year my son had calculus, and his teacher was already teaching on a flipped schedule, you know, where he would give the video and then, so I guess I'm just saying that some of the teachers feel like they could potentially meet their benchmarks for the assessments, et cetera, with the curriculum that they have developed on their own, and that they are willing to put forth that effort to do that, if that's feasible. And then at the elementary level, they have not quite yet rolled out Teams, is my or not Teams, Florida Virtual, that we're still kind of getting that up and running, and I recognize that was a massive lift. Some of the challenges that they're having with that is that they're still trying to figure out, I guess Synergy is causing some challenges because it's very time consuming to do the attendance as well as mark the participation, some technical issues with that. And so where kind of our hope was that Florida Virtual would be this sort of centralized platform potentially. We're still operating Synergy, Teams, Florida Virtual, and other things. So I guess teachers are just asking for a little bit of flexibility, not flexibility on Florida Virtual at K-8, because I recognize that that's, you know, critical, but just some, I guess, additional time. So the piece for the course correct pieces on elementary side were, if instead of having additional trainings on the PD days, if they could have some time, and maybe at the high school level too, to work on the stuff that they're already trying to figure out. So like, some people are new to Teams building channels for their specials, et cetera, and you know, they need time to just kind of figure that out before they can go into something else. So some thoughts about potentially having some time for cohorts to work on those PD days instead of taking another, you know, specific training. And then another piece on that was if there could be some sort of the manual, the pieces that you've done for Teams and Synergy have been great as far as the kind of prepared handbooks or whatever, like with the screenshots and that kind of thing. They would appreciate something like that for Florida Virtual. And then the other thing is just making sure that like principal communications don't get out ahead of where we're at. So like some principal communication had gone out and said that parents should expect for their kids to be on Florida Virtual this week, and in some cases that just hasn't happened, so now the teachers are feeling the heat, you know? So things like that, and I know it's a massive ship. And then the last thing is just that with the whole Florida Virtual, there is likely to be some printable materials, especially at the elementary level, and teachers are getting a little bit concerned about, you know, preparing those materials, et cetera. And I know that Dr. Bell had mentioned that, you know, we could potentially start utilizing volunteers at that level if we can get people that are, you know, willing and able and follow the protocol. So those are just some of the The feedback pieces, it's like I'm not saying it, you know, they're like, oh my God, but those are just, you know, they're coming with solutions, and I think that that's fantastic. And, you know, it's just another reason why I think, like, however we can pass those back and forth on a continuous basis is a great idea, so.
No, thank you for that, Mrs. Underhill. Most of those, you know, when we talk about those avenues of communication, most of those we are very familiar with and have heard loud and clear. Through our principals, through our instructional support team, through our teachers association, and they're absolutely right. Time to be able to sit and figure this out and figure out how that flexibility is gonna work. And quite honestly, it's been this process. I mean, the time that they've not had to be able to figure this out. When we think about that, we're in day 6. Day 6. So yeah, absolutely. And our site teams, our departments, our district level organization are all working through those things. And I'm very confident that through that we're going to have a plan to move forward. And that doesn't alleviate the fact that right now it's stressful and it's hard, and you know, we've got teachers trying to figure that out, and we absolutely recognize that, and we are very thankful for the work that they're doing each and every night, trying to plan for the very next day. So, as we shared earlier, and I heard from teachers today, again, it's like being a first-year teacher all over again. And, you know, if you've been doing this a while, that's really uncomfortable. And so we recognize that, and we thank you for sharing those. And we're going to be working very hard over the next week, 2, 3, to get this right. So thank you.
No, that's great, and thank you guys. And like I said, it's nice that, you know, everyone's coming together with potential solutions, so appreciate it. And I know it's day whatever, 6, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. San Martinez, I think, go ahead.
Yes, the body language, give it away.
Yeah.
President Sandoval. I will add to Ms. Underhill's comments. Thank you for pivoting communication. I've talked to Ms. Airy and Dr. Reynolds. Thank you for spending that extra time and just to reiterating the communication be aligned at all levels. And we've talked about that. I've received some parent feedback about why didn't teachers have enough time, or they're just learning why forward virtual. I just want to reiterate that the contract date was July 31st. So I appreciate grace from our community and parents that the contract time for our teachers and staff to start officially was with that in mind. Some asks that I've received in via emails when we speak to professional development is consider not a traditional professional development the way we've offered, and you've highlighted is opportunity to manage the day-to-day. How do we work through teams? I spent 2 hours trying to figure out the Microsoft whiteboard. That was 2 hours on a 30-minute presentation. I had to call a peer. And so really trying out those lessons and the tools just like we would do with our children learning new. So that was an ask of giving them time to manage that. And then classroom management looks a lot different in virtual learning. So what tools and resources do we have? One feedback that I talked to you about, Ms. Dr. Reynolds, was the ability, how I understand the ability to chat a particular individual student to redirect. I got a phone call from my son's teacher because I couldn't chat him specifically, and I heard that same experience at the high school level. Do we understand why that chat feature to an individual student is off on that technology? Doctor, Mr.
Ms. Martinez, thank you for that question. I'm not aware that that is off.
Okay.
We've had a lot of, there are some interesting nuances for using Teams, And it always boils down to how the teacher set up the team's meeting. There are settings that they have to get just right. They're not super complicated, and they're all detailed in the online publications that Mrs. Nash has done and her team has done. But most of the time when we hear something where chat didn't work, or here's another one we've heard a lot, where the class session ended but students stayed on the meeting and kept talking, those are all because the teachers aren't setting up the meeting correctly. And that's not a criticism because it is something brand new.
Right.
And so, but I will make a note of that. And so basically, to repeat, you're saying that a teacher was unable to chat an individual student.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's possible. So, but I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And in a Friday report, as we circle up with all our staff, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing with technology issues? Because we are hearing the same thing via email from our parents, connections and things like that. And how are we resolving, taking steps to resolve those tech issues? Aligned to technology and attendance. There have been some concerns that we've all received. Tracking attendance, being that the 40th day and funding is aligned to attendance, what issues do you see? Have we seen any big trends? Are they one-off situations, and how are we solving for those attendance issues?
And so you're referring to challenges taking attendance?
Taking attendance, accounting for students. Yes.
Yeah, so we've been working this past week trying to figure out exactly the right strategy to use. And we brought a team together earlier this week to identify exactly how we would like that to look. And then through that, right, we bring that team together, and then 5 more questions come up. And so it is a bit of a challenge right now, and we're working through. We've got a good plan on our teachers taking attendance. And then, of course, it looks different at the high school than it does at the K-8. We've got individual district expectations that we're needing to work through and adjust. And so we've got a team working on that right now, and it's absolutely, there's a lot of confusion around that. And as you mentioned, it is really important that we get that dialed in as soon as we can, because we need to have that accurate count from a synergy perspective as we approach that 40th day. Now, when it comes to knowing where the students are, our teachers are very, it's not a matter, I want to make sure that our community understands that our teachers are able to identify who's in their class and who's online and who's doing their work. It's the reporting aspect that we're working through.
Thank you for acknowledging that we have opportunities to address, and there are some trainings that I did review from our tech team that you can even track when the student logs in and off, and so there's a ton of data, but I am more concerned of the consistency, accuracy, and sending some communication to our parents and our students, those that really are critical about perfect attendance and making sure they're accounted for. And then I'm that parent that said, what are you doing? Why aren't you in a Teams meeting? He's like, Mom, we disconnected. Well, show me. Show me that you didn't skip class today. So some form of communication that both gives the parent some reassurance, because if you're in class and a child misses, parent automatically gets an email via Synergy. Your child's counted absent. This one looks different, and I don't catch it till after the fact when I'm sitting a room away. So I would really like the attendance and the communication to our parents and staff that we're working through that, and we're going to figure it out. So thank you. The last thing aligns to curriculum. I know and I've heard that Florida Virtual is missing some gaps, and at the state level, there are some committees that it does not align to Arizona state standards. What is Peoria's effort or strategic plan to close those gaps so that we're covering all the standards?
Thank you for that question. We are working with our teachers, particularly at the high school level, on those individual course and those alignment issues. Teachers can hide content and add content and be flexible in the system. We are also using Edgenuity, Moodle, and even eCampus when we can't find a good match. There are teachers, in fact, it's an AP teacher that yesterday wanted to look at the AP content specific for Florida Virtual and even order some resources. So we did that. We want to work with the teachers in order for them to be successful in delivering that content and get the kids the resources that they need. So to that end, we are also being flexible because at our high schools, not one platform is going to do everything that we want it to do. And that includes both alignment, resources, and the content. So we are doing our very best to respond to those teachers' needs.
Thank you for acknowledging that, and I would continue to leverage, as we hear all the conversation around the state, is leverage other districts so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and start all over. And just one follow-up, do we have a coordinator for each subject area at the district office so that we're a unified approach?
We have a global content specialist for core content. So Judy Meredith, in this example, immediately went out to that school with that AP teacher and started talking about what the teacher's other content was and what we're seeing in Florida Virtual. So some of that support certainly is there for our teachers. Those teachers also, the content teachers also go out and support teachers not necessarily in the core. And then it's important to note that our instructional coaches and some classroom teachers, there are 32 train the trainers for Florida Virtual. So they are out and about supporting teachers K-12. Now, keeping in mind, they just completed their Train the Trainers training July 30th. This is a huge push for us, and we know time is critical to helping teachers figure this out.
Thank you for recognizing that, because I remember the ELA adoption took months and time and training. So the fact that we're in this environment and turning it over so fast, it takes some grace and patience and understanding. Rework and efficiency is critical. So as we move forward, be mindful of that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Ms. Pingerelli? Good? Sure.
Ms. Myers, I just have one more question around the budget. So, sorry. I know they're looking at 40th day. I know I've heard just, rumblings that parents are disenrolling and homeschooling or whatever at this time, but do have plans to re-enroll their children when schools open. How would that affect our funding, like at the 100th day, or is there something, related to that?
Thank you, Mrs. Underhill, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. Outside of a COVID year, we're funded with what's referred to as current year funding based on the 100th day, which is typically in January. For this year, that'll be January 19th. However, with the opportunity for the stabilization grant, the 40th day in fiscal year 2021 is the determining date. So if a student were to enroll after that date, that would not be part of the consideration of looking back at our actual enrollment for fiscal year 2020 or enrollment this current year on the 40th day, which would include online learners. So it would be detrimental to the district.
Thank you there, Ms. Underhill. Either Dr. Bell or Mr. Duguid, quick question around what is our protocol if is misses a day for whatever reason, right? So in the face-to-face environment, teachers will come together and cover the class, for that individual. But it's in this virtual environment where I'm going to assume that there are login credentials, maybe per teacher or classroom, et cetera. Is there an administrator at each campus that will allow or be able to get access to the individual who missed the day, to her daily curriculum, classes, et cetera, that will allow other teachers to log in and support?
Is it on? It is, yeah.
It is.
I really wanted to tap it because that's what I often do, but I get in trouble for that. So President Sandoval, members of the board, to answer that question, I had a real fun time this morning with a couple of our administrators, and I said, hey, I want you guys to know they've been working very hard to find subs for day-to-day situations like that. And I said, you got to be ready to write down their names so that you can get a hold of them. And as I was looking at them through Teams, I said their exact names, and they cracked up. We had a lot of fun because right now, Mr. Sandoval and board, we're at a spot where we're working with Ms. Thomas and her team to try to find a way to connect your average or typical guest teacher to a classroom of virtual learners. But right now, because of those passwords and the rules and laws behind that, we aren't sharing those. So our administrative team does have to step in. They can get connected and serve in the function of taking roll, attendance, those type of things, setting the students up for success with hopefully what the teacher prepared for, so that our kids do have something to do and can further their learning with the teacher catching up the following day or even later in the day, depending upon the scenario. But right now, it is a work in progress, Mr. Sandoval.
Gotcha. Yeah, so as I would imagine, as we move forward, there may be need to have more individuals within that super user category, right, that would be able to step in and support the classroom in the case of an absent teacher. Ms. Doan, further comments? Nope. If there are no further comments, questions, Dr. Reynolds, team, thank you very much for the presentation. What's that?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think we've covered it.
Well, thank you for the dialogue, and certainly Ms. Sayar Martinez brought it up a couple times, just in and around acknowledging the opportunities that we have, and that's very important in these sessions. It's good that you understand that these are conversations and dialogues that are productive and solutions focused. So please, it is very important from a transparency perspective, and that enables us to continuously improve on a daily basis that we acknowledge those opportunities. So thank you again for the presentation. All right, that said, moving on to Section 9, Informational Reports, 9.1, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Reports. These reports can be found on our website. 9.2, Report on Upcoming Meetings and Events. Ms. Aries?
Will it work? Let's see. President Sandoval, members of the board, thank you. Just a quick note, in case you didn't catch it, an item that is not included on this report but was in the presentation on the COVID update. It is about a tech event that Mr. Gay will be joining us for on Monday. It will be live for our community, kind of a lunch and learn, talking about technology, resources for parents, where to go on our website to learn more about those resources, how to troubleshoot, and help your child be successful when they're online. So Mr. Gay will be joining me for that on Monday during the lunch hour. Of course, it'll be recorded for anyone who cannot attend, and they can play it back at any time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
Will there be a moderator to help field live questions, or is it like a webinar presentation?
Depending on time, because we do want to be respectful of the time for our parents. So parents will be able to use that chat feature in Teams Live to ask their questions, and we will moderate and push those through. We'll try to get to some if we do have time to get through. We've already captured a lot of feedback from our families, what they send us through email and social media on what some of the common questions are. So that's what will drive the content that we'll cover. And then if there are still additional questions, we'll be sure to monitor that chat and bring some updates forward.
Thank you for that, Ms. Berry. 9.3, Legislative, State, and Local Updates. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board. Administration does not have an additional legislative update this evening outside of what was discussed with the COVID update. Thank you.
Thank you. Section 10, Other Business. 10.1, Board Member Opportunity to Readdress Agenda Items. Ms. Stone?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sam Martinez? I don't have any either. Ms. Underhill? Ms. Pingerley? Nope. Thank you. 10.2, Draft Agenda for the August 27th regular board meeting, which is in its kind of a skeletal format. We'll have a more complete agenda here within the next week or so. 10.3, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Ms. Doan?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Sam Martinez?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Underhill? Ms. Pingrilla?
I guess it would have to be next board meeting to, that's our last one before September 8th. Is just have a agenda item on there, opening of schools.
Would that be considered inclusive of the COVID-19 update, or you want it specifically to read opening of schools?
Specifically opening of schools.
Okay.
Are you asking for an action item?
That would be good.
So we can drive the district on what that means, I guess what's the specific ask?
That we're going to open up by September 8th.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll need a second for that item.
I'll second.
Okay. Sorry, and I don't have a request for a future governing board item to be presented at a future governing board meeting. So going on to section 11, adjournment, I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
President Sandoval, I move to adjourn the meeting at 9:07.
Second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Ceja Martinez and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. I think, there we go. And motion passes 5-0. Meeting adjourned at 9:08, it looks like, if that clock's correct. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Appreciate it.